allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, let's start with 107, appointments. Special police officers. Chief?
Here we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the board is probably aware, we've just had two retirements this weekend and one slated for July 5th. So at this point, I'd like to move to make three appointments with the retirements. First being Paul Glazier. Paul Glazier was hired with the Burlington Police Department on December 20th of 1997. He worked in patrol until April of 2006. He was then assigned as one of the first original members to the Burlington Police Drug Unit and became a detective on August 1st of 2016. He was also a CPR and first aid instructor with the department from May 7th of 2020 until his retirement, and he will actually still maintain that CPR instructor certificate. He retired as of Saturday, June 8th of 2024, and I would respectfully request he be appointed to the position of Special Police Officer.
Thank you, Chief. With the Chief's recommendation, I wish to appoint Paul Glazier as a Special Police Officer in the Burlington Police Department, and ask that the board waive its 15-day waiting period.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 500.
Thank you. The second one is Timothy Kirshner. Tim was hired full-time on May 6th of 1996. He then became a sergeant in February of 2011. He was assigned as a community services sergeant in March of 2019 and just retired effective yesterday. At this point, I would like to respectfully request that he be appointed to the position of Special Police Officer as well.
So moved. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chief. With the Chief's recommendation, I wish to appoint Tim Kirchner to the position of Special Police Officer in the Burlington Police Department, and ask that the board waive its 15-day waiting period.
So moved. Second.
So moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 500. Thank you.
Last but not least is Lieutenant Glenn Mills. Glenn was hired with the department on November 23rd in '93. He was appointed to the acting sergeant's position in June of 2001, full-time sergeant in February of 2002, lieutenant in February of 2011, moved into the admin lieutenant's position in June of 2018, and he is set to retire on July 5th, 2024. So I would ask that he be appointed as a special police officer at least effective July 6th, 2024.
Thank you, Chief. With the Chief's recommendation, I wish to appoint Glenn Mills as a Special Police Officer in the Burlington Police Department as of July 6th, and ask that the board waive its 15-day waiting period.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500. So, before you leave, I do have a quick comment. The three great guys. I'll tell you what, replacing all three of them, you've done a great job with replacing them with the young guys. But that veteran service that they have in there, the three of them were just absolutely fantastic police officers. And they came up, what'd you say, 97?
Yeah, 90,
Quite a long
95,
time
96
ago.
time period, yep.
They've been here quite some time, and I just want to thank them all personally for what they've done for this town. If the board has anything else they'd like to add to it, please feel free. Sarah?
Concur.
Yeah? Michael?
Yeah, congratulations to all three. And real quick, I want to tell a story about Sergeant Kirshner, who I've known many years.
This God.
Great guy. So one of the very first times I met Sergeant Kirshner, he said, "Hey, Mike," and he handed me this yellow card. And it's a card that I always look back at, and I keep it in my desk all the time. And I'll read it to everyone. On the front, it says, "Please be kind and smile." And there's a smiley face on it. And on the back, it says, "Kindness is free. Kindness is contagious. A smile speaks in every language. You matter. You are absolutely unequivocally good enough." And it's always a nice reminder, and it really tells you a lot about Tim and the guy he is, and he's a really nice guy. And it's just always look back at it once in a while. So I just want to share that with everyone. Congratulations to the three of them. They're all highly skilled, and it's It's unfortunate we're going to have to lose them, but I wish them the best in their retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep this brief. Obviously, a huge congratulations to all three of those guys. They absolutely deserve it. It's crazy to think that, that much time has passed, right? I mean, I met Paul and Timmy when my dad was in the force, and they were playing softball, the softball league. And, I was just a little kid. It's just the most bizarre, the time is just a funny thing, But, I mean, truly just great guys who absolutely deserve, hopefully a happy retirement. So all my congratulations to them.
Thank you. Jim, I saved you for last because you work with them all, so
Yep.
I figured, and let's not get into some of the stories, okay?
Oh, well, no, I know
Okay.
we'd be here till whenever, but, no, again, you hate to lose such talent full-time. I mean, they're three very dedicated, very smart police officers, each have their own forte, like Paul with the drugs, Timmy with his community service, and Glenn a lot with the training. But you don't lose them permanently. What happens is, as retirees they'll be working details, and in a moment's notice, because they're still sworn certified police officers, if there's an emergency, it's that many more officers that we have available to help. If you have something going down at the mall or some major incident, if you get someone with 30 years of experience, they're there to help. So they're on the street, and we'll be able to help out in an event if something like tragic happens like that. But I wish them all well. It is great being retired and in that position, but again, we're not losing them completely. They'll still be with us.
Thank you. All righty. Well, that being said, thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay. Summer programs, approval.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If it's okay with you, I'll handle this. I don't see Brendan or Kelly here. This is an annual request from the Rec Department for the use of the town common for their summer programs.
Yep.
We have concerts, Celebrate Burlington, Truck Day, all the typical events that they typically hold on the commons throughout the summer, so we usually approve them all at once. Check with Lynn here. I believe all these fit into the calendar with no other conflicts with anything else that the board has already approved. So I would request that the board approves Recreation's request for the use of the common for summer programming.
Okay. Do I have comments or just a motion on this? It's something we do every year, so it's,
Comments, but I'll make nobody else have.
I have a comment, Mr. Chairman. Just looking at this list, it's just a nice reminder of how lucky we are in Burlington to have such an awesome Parks and Rec department. I mean, there's a list here of 20 things of summer concerts, children's show, Celebrate Burlington, Truck Day, and not every town and community has this. And it's just a really nice reminder of all the good work they do, and I want to thank them for it, and that's all I wanted to add, Mr. Chairman.
thank you.
I just had one question, and it might be for Kelly or Brendan, but have they received the plans from the Sculpture Park fundraising event as to where the things are going to go on the common? And I'm just thinking about like Truck Day and Celebrate Burlington are kind of all over the common. The other ones are more just at the gazebo, but.
Sure. If I could defer to the board member that was at that meeting, as far as I'm aware, all those issues have been ironed out in terms of how the sculptures may affect those events. But Jim, do you
Yeah,
want-
go ahead, because I was there too, so go ahead.
Yep, we walked the common with Rec Department and the Sculpture Park. Rec Department marked out where the best location. They had a map, they marked them out, and everybody was in agreement on these spots. So everything's all marked out for both events. So.
Okay.
But, well, just real quick, while I'm at it, I just want to say, these are just the town events. There are a lot of other private events. Mike, I don't know if you're going to mention Cops and Cars later, but so many other events that happen on that common, townwide, almost throughout the whole year. But, again, we have and other people say you have a beautiful common. Yeah, we do, but we do a lot on it. So I love seeing the list, and it's not the only thing that's happening. There's other things happening as well. That's it, I'm done.
Thank you.
No, nothing for me.
Nothing?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Mr. Chairman, better late than never, Brendan.
oh, when did you sneak in?
Ask the Stones.
Sorry, I was at a staff orientation tonight.
Okay, well, we were just about to approve it. Would you like to step out? We'll approve it. You come back, you got anything to say?
The only thing I want to add is, I apologize, we have 2 lead-up events to Truck Day, but we don't have Truck Day itself on there, which is September 15th. So we have the Friday night, which is the sensory-friendly portion of the event, and then Saturday, continued setup, and Sunday is the actual event. And I think it may have gotten cut off before it was printed, and we just didn't notice. So
Okay.
I apologize for that mistake.
No, don't worry at all. I don't think that's going to make or break us tonight. All right, with that being said,
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve all the dates as presented, and including September 15th for the actual Truck Day that is not listed on the sheet. Brendan, do you have a time for Truck Day on the 15th?
Yes, we go 9 to 2.
Okay, so
I believe it is.
including September 15th from 9 to 2.
okay, I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, against? 500. How's that?
Apologize for my tardiness.
Not at all, my friend. Not at all.
Thanks, Brendan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brendan.
Okay. 109, approval, new general license. Paul? Oh, oh, here they come. Okay.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Good to see you.
You too.
So, introduce yourself, tell us who you are, tell us what this is all about, tell us what's going on.
Yeah, Moses Lalayan. I'm applying for to buy second-hand license for the second-hand jewelry in Burlington Mall.
Okay,
So
that's it?
that's it.
You have a,
I take over the business, because I just applied here
All right, and
20
you-
days ago.
you already have a
No,
kiosk
he did
up
take
there?
over his brother's business at the Burlington Mall.
Okay.
So we've been waiting for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. We'll start with Jimmy. Any questions on this?
No questions at all.
All paperwork's all-
I actually worked the case with his brother, and they do a very thorough job of
Okay,
taking care of things.
thank you. Nick?
So this is an existing business that you're taking over.
Yes.
What's the name of the business?
Angelus Jewelry Repair.
Okay, great. No other questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mike?
No questions. I wish you luck.
Thank you.
Sarah?
No questions? Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it was pretty easy, huh? No questions at all. You can wipe the sweat off now, it's all over. Well, not yet, we have to vote on it first. Mr. Sangrino, anything to add?
I would just say, do you have anything you want to say about the business? We got people watching at home, or do you want to tell them?
Do you wanna talk about your business?
Tell them what you do and take the
I
opportunity.
mean, any jewelry repair we do, like watch repair, jewelry repair, anything.
He does everything right on the spot. He also does custom jewelry.
35 years doing this business, so it's a family business. We do everything on the spot or custom jobs, anything,
And where is it in the mall? Is it a kiosk? or is
Kiosk,
it-
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So you have one and you're going to have a second one up there?
No, it was mine. I sold it long time ago. I went to Natick Mall. Now I come back. So my brother, we moved to Vegas.
Oh, okay, all
I
right.
got it back here, so.
You got it back.
It's my place like long time ago, but I
Can't get
I
away
was
from
sold
it.
now. I take it back.
Okay.
Right.
On that note, I will take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve secondhand junk license for Moses Lalayan, 75 Middlesex Turnpike.
Motion made and seconded by Mike. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Good luck. Good luck with
Have a good day.
everything.
Have a good day.
See you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
110, Sculpture Park. Proposal for new sculptures.
Chairman, I don't see Ms. LaRue here yet. Do you want to postpone this one?
Yep.
Move on to the next one, we'll come back to it?
Yep. Yep, we'll put those on. Okay.
Hang on.
Next one's Melissa. You wanna take it?
Melissa.
Hello.
So, we have a proposal for a pilot program.
Yes. So in your packet, there is a proposal for a pilot micro gallery kind of pop-up program. And what we're looking at doing is using some of the funding we have for placemaking that we had received from the state to explore a pop-up gallery. And it's still in kind of formation as we're kind of moving this forward. I don't know if you wanted to share any of the proposal. There are some photographs in the proposal in the packet. So the idea is, when we had talked about placemaking, the idea is to layer some of the interventions and kind of, I would say, almost whimsical ideas that you can bring in fresh foot traffic and then tap into the veins of creativity and inspiration of different things and of residents themselves. So similar to kind of what we've done with the mural project, with the Pocket Park, what we're looking at is using some of the funding to introduce a micro gallery that would be programmed with some volunteer support and look at really creating a little bit of a hub, if you will, for Burlington residents that have, you know, art that they'd like to showcase. In this case, it would be a rotating theme. It could have different types of programs, whether it's digital media or things that kind of are in place, kind of classic art. And we would locate it in the town center. We've talked to a couple property owners that would be interested in kind of housing it there. Try to put it where most of our foot traffic is, which is around kind of the true north kind of shopping mall or shopping strip there. So we wanted to get your feedback. We've talked to the director of the library, Mike Wick. We've talked to Brendan Egan with Recreation to see if there's ideas for collaboration. They had a couple ideas of where they could place it kind of in Simon Park and maybe some of the library activities as well. And I think what we were looking for is any input or feedback. I think we have it on approval, but it's really a kind of a discussion item as well. So before we move it forward, we wanted to get input from the board.
Okay. This last page that we have here with the invoice on of $23,200, that's the cost, is what?
Yeah, so we would purchase, yes, we would purchase the trailer. We would then retrofit it so that it would be more of the gallery, kind of a gallery space. It would also be ADA accessible. It's not, I think, a few, in our conversations with some of the department heads, they were looking at it as a space to program inside, and it's less about really trying to program inside to have people or kids inside it, but more of a unit to work outside of it. Like it's a location, and then you work, maybe put things inside it, or kind of use it as a platform to, host something that's external. So.
Okay. I'll save mine for the end. So, is that Sarah?
Sure. This looks really cool and interesting. Are there any examples from other communities that have done something similar? It's not something I've ever seen before, so I'm just curious if other communities have done it and what kind of programs they've offered and what has been the response from those communities.
So probably Concord's probably the easiest example. Concord has a shed that works the same way. The form is a little different. It looks more like a house, but it's a small house on a trailer, and they bring it to different events in the same, very much the same kind of model. And then we've seen some other options like this that may be more maker space, like a little bit more interactive, that they have things like, if we're familiar with Made in Burlington, people who are kind of organized to do more crafty things, and then you kind of sell things or showcase things out of the pod. I think we were looking at some feedback from town council on doing any kind of retail. That's why we really wanted to focus on the art piece at this point before we move down that road. But yeah, Concord would probably be the best example. We could show some pictures of that.
Okay, and I guess, can I continue, Mr. Chair?
Absolutely.
I'm just trying to wrap my brain around how it's going to fit into our community and what what it's going to do, and I'm having trouble picturing.
Yes.
But, and it looks like there's the installation of a big window. See, I was
Yes.
picturing more of a gallery where there's art on the walls, and a window is on a wall, so you kind of look in, and then I just wonder what the purpose of the window is.
No, it is like that, so that you can do both. The idea is that it's flexible, that you can do both. So when no one's there manning it, you can close it and it still exists as a gallery. And so when it does that, it almost kind of functions like as maybe another 3D art, like one of the sculptures. So you can walk by it and you can see inside it, but you don't go inside it. But there's an opportunity to lay it out, or if it was an immersive kind of laser, we were talking about doing some laser art inside it, that would be, then you open it up and there's like, it would have to be manned most likely, but then you do an immersive art piece in there. And those, why we got excited about it was because partly there is this theme in terms of economic development that you bring arts and cultures as the nexus for bringing more economic vitality and like kind of the creative side of things that, you know, help to kind of inspire and connect with the greater community. And that's what we're trying to explore here. And it's a little harder than in some communities that definitely have a very strong kind of vein of art. So we are tapping into a few residents who have already had some history and have some experience with creating some art. So I think that's kind of where we're trying to leverage our residents who are already artists and trying to build on that.
And that was going to be my next question is, have you reached out to local artists, and is there that appetite for them to, I know that the library, like you said, talked to Mike from the library, they do installations, temporary installations from local artists. So I'm wondering if you can tap into that as a resource. I just didn't know how many there are in the community.
Yeah, so I think that's what we're trying to build now is like we would look into creating a program if we want to proceed down this path. The idea would be then we would try to establish maybe a stipend with one of the local residents who's also an artist, establish a stipend, and that then we could create a program over a 12-month period, because I think that's really what I would find probably from, you know, the perspective of the community is not just buying the shell and making it look cool, but actually making sure there's, you know, just like anything, there's, you know, fresh content in there. So I would say probably come back to the board with more of a programmed like schedule of what would go inside it would probably be helpful to understand.
And then that's my last question is around the funding. Are you thinking eventually when it gets to, you know, more fleshed out, it would be going to town meeting with a warrant article and asking for free cash, or how would that be funded?
So the grant would fund all the, you know, capital components of it. I think the only thing that we'd want to do is if we want to give it some more energy other than a volunteer basis, we might want to look at a stipend for like I would say a resident artist or something like that to continue the programming and be on top of it.
Okay, so the 23,200 would be through a grant?
That's from the grant, yeah.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
All set?
All set, thank you.
Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Where would this be housed when it's not used?
I think that's a very good question. So we were looking for space through facilities. The idea is like we would, part of it, because we don't have town-owned property in the town center where the businesses are located, that's negotiated with the property owner. So we have reached out to 2 property owners who are willing to have it there parked. When it's in storage or when there's nothing programmed into it, I think that's where we want to make sure. We haven't confirmed from facilities or DPW yet where it could be located. So that is a good question that we have. We're still researching that.
Mr. Chairman? So it says, like, here lists pop-up events. Would something like this, obviously not this year, but would this show up at Celebrate Burlington, stuff like that? And then one final question.
Yes, sir.
How does it get from place to place?
So it would be moved by a truck, which we did verify that our DPW team can move. It's really after, after it's disengaged and when it's in storage, it would sit somewhere else without a truck, but it's just a regular truck,
Town truck.
town truck.
So,
All set?
yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Melissa, I love this idea. I think it's fantastic. And the possibilities are literally endless. You could have art contests for students in it. We could put it at Celebrate Burlington. You could put it, too bad we didn't have it now, we could use it for Burlington 225, make a nice display. You could put it at literally any town event. You could put it at opening day at baseball. It could really become a fixture in town of all the different things you could do. You could probably pull it in the parade. I mean, there's a lot of different things. And again, I love this concept of placemaking because it brought us the beer garden, which we all love. So again, this is more an interesting spin on placemaking in that you will put this at, over by True North, and you could do any type of display for like a holiday or a civic event or Memorial Day to celebrate veterans. Like, there's so many great things you could do. So I'm totally in favor of this idea. And a couple of my board members took my questions, the storage, the costs.
Yep.
So this is going to be paid for by the same grant, the placemaking grant that helped us start the beer gardens?
Yes.
That is fantastic. That money is money that has really benefited Burlington. I think the possibilities are endless on this, and you could do a lot of different things, so I'm fully in favor of it, and I love the idea. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Nick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Melissa, I agree with Mike that it's a wonderful idea and it's wildly creative. I don't know why today of all days my brain is being way more stubborn when it comes to like the logistics and the notion of spending $23,000 on a trailer. That for probably the first time in my life, I'm going to say, I don't know if I love it as an idea from economic development. I think it's a fantastic idea. I just don't know if it's the right idea. I would, I'm not going to put ideas out there and say these are things you have to do, right? But like, I would almost rather see that money go towards more permanent things that we could have around town, right? As opposed to having to deal and manage with a trailer that we have to then move throughout town, right? Like I know I always am the first person to say don't let logistics kill a good idea, right? But the logistics having to move a trailer around town and to outfit it for multiple events over the course of just a given year, right, sounds exhausting, right? And you are one person in a team of two, right? Even with a resident artist, like that sounds like a intense endeavor, right? So I drive past the mural, right, and I go, oh my God, I love this friggin' mural, right? Like I do, it looks amazing, and it's there, and it's not going anywhere, right? I don't know, like, do we want to work closer with Mike and do, in our exhibit in the library, right? I know the goal is trying to bring it closer to retail, right? So, are there small retail things we can pop up and then spend some of these dollars to advertise that placemaking versus spend it on the structure of a trailer, right? Again, if you've explored these things, if you're exploring these things, if you're like, Nick, this is what you're saying, sounds nice, but is not a good direction, right? We rely on you as the expert in the space to help guide us. I'm not totally sold, right? I love the idea of the notion of interactive or engaging, art displays, right? My head, because I was there recently on a field trip with one of my kids, went to the Museum of Science, right? And how they kind of take the idea of the experience to a minimal approach, right? It's instruction, it's activity, right? It's a screen and a sensor, or it's this and a that, but that whole thing is engaging enough, right? That they really draw the focus and attention of people walking through the space, right? It doesn't always have to be, I guess, big, right? Or in this case, a trailer, maybe to achieve our ends. So just food for thought, right? I'm not against it, right? But I mean, if we're in the space of discussion, then these are things that I want to put forth to you to say that, like, well, although I love the creativity, I never want to stifle that. I do want to bring to everyone's, like, I guess, attention to my opinion in this case, that $23,000 for a trailer that can only be used for this purpose and requires a lot of legwork throughout the year feels like it might be like we're pushing our limits, and that there might be an opportunity to scale in a different direction, not back, right? Just in a different direction. So just thoughts. Thank you.
Chairman Randy, if I could, just to share a little bit of kind of the thinking that brought us to this space. I know there's a couple other examples, not the exact same, but there's these Etsy villages that you've seen. Maybe, Seaport probably has the most, definitive example. Marlborough has, so what a theme that we've seen around Massachusetts, and it's come from kind of the West Coast, has been like kind of storage sheds that allow for kind of incubator space for makers. We actually have that a lot in LA with Made in Burlington that created a space over on the Wayside Commons, and that was actually through a grant that we secured through the Regional Economic Development Organization, M3. So we did help them get started there. With regard to our thinking on the Etsy Village, as much as that, could the funding be spent on something more permanent, our thinking was that we do not have a classic main street or a place other than the mall that sees a lot of foot traffic, and so we wanted to really activate kind of the small businesses in the town center, which is on private property, and then we thought of the other opportunities for when there is like Burlington Day or things that are happening at the Common, and to move the concept, whatever is actually inside it, in two different locations led us to kind of the mobile kind of piece that's, transportable. Yeah. So there's that. And then there are, just getting back to Select Board, Sarah, in terms of your comment about some other examples, I was thinking there's two other good examples. The mobile, and not necessarily in art, but in terms of mobile, there's Andover has a mobile town hall. A couple communities have mobile libraries. And then in Ashland, they have this one place called the Community Spot, which is, again, a shed, but on town-owned property that they can manage and program. So there's different examples and different iterations, and our thinking kind of led us to kind of the mobile piece to maximize its presence in the town center, given that we don't have a fixed place that we own town property, and then less about retail because we're not necessarily competing with, the mall or Wayside, and really try to provide a venue for, artistic expression. Yeah. And I think just so this, board knows also that it is the fixed asset. That is what we're designing, purchasing, and buying. Even if it was a shed, it would be the same kind of theme. And then also, we are still moving forward with the another grant opportunity that might enhance this through MOT, which is the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism, that is supporting these kind of efforts, that kind of the intersection between arts, culture, economic development, and especially us being neighbors with, Lexington Concord, we thought we could even collaborate on 250 kind of concepts that for the next year. So that's some of the thinking behind this as well.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, absolutely.
Melissa, so I appreciate your train of thinking. Mm-hmm. Just going on that train of thought, did you happen to look at maybe like the notion of, and I'm going to say this and bear with me, a food truck? Something that's self-mobile, as opposed to that needs to be pulled along with it. Because if the cost is close to what your grant is, right, then now we've got something that we can outfit and move itself, right, as opposed to having to get someone to get a truck to pull it somewhere. Mm-hmm. Right now, just a body that we're looking to get in the truck and move it. So just, a thought in terms of like really taking the logistics to an easier place and finding a path forward. Plus, it still opens. And you can pull art out of it and have people come. You could do a lot with it in terms of, the same idea as the trailer, just with a steering wheel. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, can I ask a follow-up?
What's that?
Ask a follow-up? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Melissa, is there a deadline in which you have to spend the grant money by, or do we have?
There is, actually. I believe it's 2026.
Oh, all right.
So we have some additional time.
It's not imminent.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so right now, my thought process is to table this. Sounds like you have a lot of ideas. People are definitely in favor of something, whether it's this truck idea that you proposed to us, or a food truck with no food.
Thank you.
Basically, right?
Right, yeah.
That's not basically, right?
A foodless truck.
A foodless truck.
Trailer with a steering wheel.
Yeah. So I think with some of the questions that were asked, and most of them were answered, but some of them weren't, so maybe we can get back and put this back on the agenda for maybe sometime in the summer, or, and that way they can get some more answers and everyone will be on the same page. Does that sound reasonable
Yeah,
to you?
definitely. Thank you. Thanks for the consideration and the input. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
I see Barbara's here, so we put it off for a little bit, so we'll go back to the sculpture park now. Jonathan, coming up? Might as well, you started this whole thing. All right, where are we now? Sculpture park. 110. What do we have here?
Hello, gentlemen. My name is Barbara LaRue. I'm the current chair of the Sculpture Park Committee. I apologize for being tardy. I got here as quickly as I could, but it wasn't fast enough, so I appreciate your patience. I'm here to talk to you tonight about the 2024 installation proposal for the Sculpture Park. And you have a packet in front of you. I'm asking you to keep it confidential because we like to keep this surprise. But before we go into that, I want to just quickly remind you of what our selection process is. We work through the New England Sculpture Association, they put out a call to artists, and we receive applicants. The committee goes through the submissions, and we do a quick pass. We only eliminate things that are either dangerous or could harm someone or inappropriate. And then we hand it over to the schools. And the schools, most of the time, it's the elementary school and the high school that participate, and that's the way it was this year as well. The children look at all of the different submissions and they rate them. As you can imagine, it's different at the high school than it is at the elementary school. The elementary school kids are given stickers and they put stickers on their favorites. The high school kids have to do a little bit more and have to discuss the pieces, and they learn more about it, and it's more in-depth. Then they send their favorites back to the committee, and the committee comes up with a list of what the kids' favorites are, and we choose from their top favorites, usually from the top 10. We can't take all 10 of them because we can't afford them, so we try to select the ones that the kids really liked, but that we also try to do a different mix of colors and sizes and things like that. So that's how we get here, and we are presenting to you what our picks are and hoping for your approval tonight. So we can talk through them if you want, or you can just look at them, whatever you prefer.
Well, I'm going to let Jimmy start first because he's on the committee with you. So I'm going to allow Jimmy to go first with questions or anything else you have.
I don't have any questions. I was there for the choosing of them, so I'm
Okay.
pretty well versed in what we have.
Okay. I'm going to end up with a couple of questions, so Nick, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Barbara, if you can, remind me which ones these are going to replace.
Yes. Currently, the town owns 5 sculptures right now. The sculptures that will be leaving are Pod, which is the granite one immediately by the entrance. Ryby House, which is the one that looks kind of like a little tree house.
Yep.
Meadow Dancer, which is the tall metal dancer guy in the back. And Composition 1, which is the red and white kind of net-looking one with the big ball in the middle. The other piece that was part of that same installation is Lumen. It is the dragonfly that's in the front right corner. We are keeping that. The artist has agreed to let us keep it for another 6 months while we attempt to raise money to buy it, because it was a real favorite.
I'm going to interrupt. So you said there's 5 on the common and 4 of them are being taken off?
Oh, no, there's only 2 on the common.
No, I'm sorry. I mean the common. I meant the park. sorry, my bad. The sculpture park has only 5 of them on?
Oh, no, there's 4 that are going away.
Okay.
They will be replaced by 5 new ones. One of them doesn't require a base.
Right, okay, so these 4 are going away, and
Yes.
then we're hanging on the Dragonfly,
Yes.
and then we're hanging on to,
The ones that will remain that we own are the cherries,
yep,
the heart with the 2 birds,
yep.
the tall blue one.
Oh, we own that one now?
Well, that was donated to us.
That's right,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
yes.
Then the red heart guy and the dog, which are on the common.
Right, Havoc and Follow Your Heart. Okay. So 4 are going, 6, right? Dragonfly,
Will remain.
right,
Yes,
plus the other 5. The
Correct.
6 total that are staying. Yeah, either because we own them or
yes.
they're being
We own 5 of them. One of them is the Dragonfly, which
staying
we,
6 months.
yes.
Right.
The Dragonfly, excuse me, but is really inexpensive compared to the others. That's why it's popular, so we thought, whereas the Meadow Dancer people like, but he wants $15,000 or more, and the Dragonfly is kind of popular, and it's only 5 or 6. So that seemed like if we had the money, that would be a good thing to keep.
So I guess my biggest question is, with 4 going and a proposed 5 coming, spatially, what are we talking about?
Well, basically, it's an addition of 1, because there's 5 now, 4 are going away,
Yeah.
and will be replaced by 5. So it's 1 more than we had before.
Right.
So we feel there's plenty of space there. Now, there's another question about the future of the park, and that's a much bigger deal, and I think we're going to have a few meetings about that before that's decided. But in the space that we have now, we feel very confident there's room for 1 additional.
Okay.
Mr.
And-
Chairman,
Hold on a
I'm
second.
sorry, Mr. Priest.
Go ahead.
Just the board, if you could just consider where these sculptures may be placed. I know that that's a discussion that the committee wants to have. If all things go well, in 10 months, where the sculpture park is likely to be a construction site. So I just don't think it makes a lot of sense to go through the trouble of placing new sculptures at that site and then having to move them somewhere at that point. So I would urge the board to try to figure out, in the next month or so, where is that actual new home for the sculpture park, whether it's spread out or a separate location.
Okay.
Mr. Chair? I understand Mr. Sagarino's point, and I don't disagree with it. I want to make sure you understand, though, that moving the sculptures is not difficult. Very few of them, especially the new installation, are that heavy. They can be moved by people, not machines, most of them. Some of the ones that can't be moved that easily, we own, and so they'd have to be moved anyway. The only concern I have about trying to install all the sculptures in the new location, well, besides the fact that we don't know where that's going to be, but if it is on the common, because we had talked about that as one of the potential sites on the outskirts of the common, that might be difficult to do while the Pigs on Parade is continuing, because that goes through the end of August. I personally don't see harm in installing the sculptures on the pads that exist today, because they are relatively easy to install and then remove. It's more difficult to remove the pads than it is to remove the sculptures.
Right. That brings me to my next question, which is, timing-wise, when are you looking to have this swap occur?
In July.
July.
It probably won't happen on all one day. It'll probably happen over the course of a week to 10 days.
Right. I mean, looking at what's before us, if we had to spread them out or find a new location, I don't have any issue with them as sculptures, which is the immediate request, right? I think
Yes.
it's a nice broad section, a cross section of different forms of media. which is something that I know that the Sculpture Park Committee is always after, right? I think it's a nice transition from the pieces that were there to some new things. So from that perspective, I think it's good. If we want to entertain the discussion of where they're going, or we want to have a different day, we absolutely can. I don't think that whether they're, placed, spread out, or together in different location, there's going to be an issue. I think that where the concern comes for me is if they have to go to a singular location, and it's for some reason smaller than the current location, with the number that we have, what do we do? Do we just, do we then, by process of elimination, pick one that goes back to the artist? What would you consider, say we find ourselves in a position where we're like, look, one of these has to go home. Do we just send it home?
Well, we certainly could, because the artist would get paid, and I'm sure they would not object to having their piece back so they could put it somewhere else. It is obviously the hope of the Sculpture Park Committee that we would not be shrinking down to a much smaller space. And I would love to have the conversation about where the sculpture should go, and I'm willing to do that whenever you want, but I also don't want you to feel rushed, that you have to speed this up and get it done by July, because that might not, I don't know, you only have a couple of meetings probably between now and July.
Yeah. Okay. Those are all my questions for now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I like the new sculptures. They're very, very cool. I think they're going to be a nice contrast to what we have now, so good job to the committee. I just had a couple questions. What is the usual term for the rental and the sculptures that we rent?
It's usually 2 years, and the sculptors receive $2,500 stipend for that 2 years. We pay them half up front and then half before they take it back.
And what determines if we buy it? If it's reasonable and we get a nice reaction to it, it's popular in the community, is that how you make the determination?
Well, we hold events at the park throughout the year, usually 4 or so events a year. And we oftentimes we ask people to fill out a little form, what's your favorite? And we collect them in a box and we count them and we see what people like. So then we look at how much they cost. So when we receive the submissions, they all get $2,500, but they also come with a price tag if you wanted to buy it, what it would cost. So we know ahead of time which ones are even in the running. For example, the blue one, Seraph, it never occurred to us that we would ever buy that because the price tag on it was crazy high. But through negotiations with the artist, we got it donated, and so we didn't have to pay for it, and that's great. But like John said, some of the sculptures are just too expensive, and we can't afford to buy them.
Does the rental fee come off the sale price, or is that different?
No, it does not.
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sarah?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I share a lot of the thoughts that Nick has already verbalized. I also like all of the sculptures quite a bit, especially the one that, without giving anything away, is made out of all the recycled materials.
Oh, yes,
I would love
yes.
to see more of that. So yeah, without getting into the weeds of where the sculpture park is going to go,
Yes.
what conversations have been had about that?
We actually did a survey at that event, I forget what it was called, that Amy and Nikki
Civic Night?
Cadillac put on, Civic Expo.
Yep.
We made some suggestions, and we had people vote on them. And I've had informal discussions with members of the select board. So some of the ideas that were floated were, along the outskirts of the Common, along Bedford Street and Center Street. B, on the outskirts of the Common along Cambridge Street. C, creating a walk that would run from the Human Services Building, not on the Common side, but on the municipal building side, from the Human Services side all the way to the fire station. So as you walked down the street, there would be sculptures on your right. So all of those ideas were well received by the people that were at the Civics Expo. The one that won, so to speak, was on Bedford Street and Center Street on the Common, but it was pretty close. So I can't say that the public did not have a really definitive answer. all of them were favorably received.
Can I just jump in and say that I think that having these pig sculptures on the common this summer will give us a sense of what it would be like for there to be sculptures in different places in the common, but then they're going to leave. And so that will give people a feel for, okay, you know, is this a good thing to have them more around the common or not? I think it's a good experiment, and I think that we shouldn't really even think about the future until we have had the summer to see what it's like having art things around the common and see what people think about it, and obviously including the select board and rec, you know. So it's an experiment.
I was actually in my notes, let's see how the fundraiser on the common goes, get the temperature of the community on their response. And then, and you mentioned rec. I was actually going to ask what kind of conversations have been had. I know Lindsay's on the committee, but you know, with Brendan or Kelly about any other, I know you probably prefer to be in the center area or the common area. Have there been any conversations with rec about other parks or open spaces in town that could be contenders? Or limited on space just in general, but.
Right. Well, we worked very closely with Rec on the Pigs on Parade project, and they actually helped us select each location for each pig. So we've been working with them very closely on that. We have not had the conversation about where the sculpture park should go. To be honest, because I thought it was up to you. But yes, we certainly need to involve them in the conversation, especially if it's property that they have to maintain.
Yeah, they have a lot of knowledge of, you know, I mean, we have knowledge of the community as well, but they're specific to like fields, parks, and open spaces. Might be able to come at it from that angle, or that's not really.
No, I think it's a great idea, and I'd be happy to talk to Brendan and Kelly about it.
Yeah, just if he has any ideas.
Okay.
I don't think I have any questions.
Okay. Okay, who's all set? Okay. All right, here's what I have. So how many sculptures are actually on the Sculpture Park Committee right now? How many sculptures are up there right now?
Okay.
It'll all lead to something big.
There's
That's it.
10.
8 on the park itself.
Yes, there's 2 on the common and 8
There's
in the
8
park.
over at the Sculpture Park.
Correct,
There's 8 of them there. And 4 of them are coming out,
correct.
right? 4 of them are coming out, and 5 are going back in.
Yes, so the number would be at 9.
Okay, so now you're going to be at 9, right? I'm just trying to get numbers for the common, when we do move them
Okay.
over there for the common, so it'll be 9. Because I think there's a lot
Well-
to go on.
It would actually be 11 because there's already 2 on the common.
Okay, well, the
Yeah.
2 that are already on there, they're the dog and, what's the other one?
The falling apart.
The Falling Heart,
Right.
right. So they're already there, so I'm going with the 9. And don't take this wrong, I like the sculptures, they're fine and everything else. I'm trying to figure out, we have a very, very big common.
Yes.
And I don't want it to become overcrowded with the sculptures, with the, what do we call it? It's not the Pigs on Parade anymore. What did we call it
It's still
now?
called the Pigs on Parade.
No, that's not what we called it the other night at the meeting, at the DBA meeting. We called it something else. They made
Celebration of.
No, that was just, no,
They made the change of name, so I just want to make sure
no,
I'm doing
they
it.
made us change the banner.
The banner, okay.
We
the
can't
banner.
change the name of the whole program.
Okay,
It's-
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So
So
the
but now there's
banner
going to be,
doesn't-
how many
How many?
pigs and piglets are going to be up?
There will be 10 large pigs and 6 small pigs installed on the common in 13 locations.
Right.
Because the little pigs have 2 on a platform.
Right, okay.
So
this
it really is a
this
very good
This is where
experiment.
I'm going with this.
Yes.
Okay, so now, right now, there's going to be a lot if we move those from the Sculpture Park to the Common right now. So a lot of my thought process is like, okay, let's slow this roll down a little bit. The police station isn't going to, what, another 10 months from now, roughly?
Best case.
Before we start to actually break ground on this? So we have 10 months to figure out where we're going to put those, where they're going to put the new sculptures
Yes.
and the old ones
Yes.
on the common. So that's where I'm going. I think this board should limit the number of sculptures that can be allowed on the common, even though it's very, very big. It still takes away from everything else that's going to be up there, whether it's a private party or truck day or field day or flag day or whatever those 12 things we just approved with. I think there's a lot that has to go into this. I think my personal opinion is we allowed it to go on the Pigs on Parade, which was fine with me, and then it got into a whole thing which should have never happened because we should have been up on top of these with questions prior to it happening. All right, and I'm not against it. I'm not against it at all. But there was a lot to go on, so I want to sit back and see if the board wants to limit the number of sculptures that we can put on the common because it's so big. Are we going to move it? Is it going to be on the common? Is it going to be across the street at Simons Park? Is it going to be, I've heard a bunch of different things. I've heard the runway down the high school to the high school. I've heard a whole bunch of different spots. So those are the things I want this board to really sit back and think about before we approve anything further than these sculptures that we're looking at tonight.
Yeah.
I concur.
No, wait, 1 second. Go.
Thank you. I agree. I think that to have the discussion, we should have a meeting, hopefully over the summer, with REC, ourselves, the Sculpture Park Committee.
Yep.
Sit down and talk about that, what makes the most sense. Because like Sarah said, in terms of REC knows the space. They know the fields. They know where things can go.
Absolutely.
A lot of thoughts run through my head, too, about where things can go. And I think, John, to your point, we let the summer be the time that we bide, right? Because if we're not breaking ground right away, then the police station's not going anywhere, we can get through this summer, and then we can, during that time, we can sit down and discuss what we think the best approach is in a collective manner, come to an agreement, and then we can action forward on that plan, hopefully. But at least we'll all be together in the same room having the conversation. My 2 cents.
Can I just,
Barbara? Well, Barbara first, and then I'll go.
I was just saying I agree with you, that's all.
Okay.
I think
Jonathan?
the last we heard was that it wasn't clear. Originally, we thought the whole sculpture park was going to have to move for the police station, but I think that we heard it isn't clear that summer all of it has to go.
I think you're 100% right, but I think the best thing to do is to take them off of there in case there's a trailer that backs up or a backhoe or something backs up and knocks one of the walls. Yes?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, at a minimum during the construction process, that area wouldn't be available.
You think all of them,
Yeah.
for safety, all of them?
And lay-down area, equipment, dirt,
Okay.
of that nature, but certainly we do believe that there will be room for sculptures upon the completion of the project, but
So-
not during construction.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So as of right now, what we're doing is we're going to approve these sculptures, which there's 5 of them in this package?
Yes.
Right, and there's 1 being left, so we're already up to an extra 1 than we've had before, correct?
Correct.
So this is what happens in life with everything, and don't take this the wrong way. We just added 1, okay, a year from now. Sorry, we just added 1 more. Next thing you know, instead of having 10, now we got 18. You know what I mean?
Wouldn't that
And I'm not saying
be
year
great?
by year, but I mean, there's some people that are going to like it, and like everything else in the world, there's some people that think they don't like the sculpture park. It's just the way it works. There's some people that love me and some people that hate me. I think the people way in the back might like me and the people up front might hate me. I don't know. I'm just saying that's how it works. So I think that we ought to really sit down and discuss how many we're going to allow as a total. That's only, yes, Barbara.
I agree. I also think we should, when we sit down and have that conversation, we can consider many locations. It doesn't have to be all on the common and no place else. It doesn't have to be just the walk. You have flexibility.
Well, I gave Jonathan a fantastic idea, and I think he got mad at me one day. I told him I thought the landlocked forest was perfect for this, as they're walking through the field and seeing everything. I'm just kidding, right? I'm just kidding.
It doesn't bother
He
me.
got worked up that night, so I just thought I'd bring it up again.
Well, it was also suggested, could we put them over on Mary Cummings Park?
That was suggested, yes.
The thing is, I just wanted to reiterate, going back to the Master Plan Steering Committee, which is where this whole idea got birthed, was that one of the things that came up is that Burlington lacks that really cute 1890s downtown that every other town has, whether it's Wakefield or Stoneham or Lexington or Wilbraham. They all have got that pretty downtown that was built at the turn of the century, and we don't. We don't have that. We have a different kind of a downtown, and we have the very pretty common area. And I think that the idea of the sculpture park, well, the other thing was this. If you say Burlington to anybody in Massachusetts, instantly they say the mall. And to be perfectly honest, one of the reasons for the sculpture park was the hopes that it would grow to the point, and I don't know what point that is, where people would then say, oh, Burlington, that's the town with the cool sculptures. And so how big it should get, to me, is a very, very open question. And I originally wanted to see it more visible from 3A, so people would drive by and they'd go, look at that. The committee liked that spot between police and Grandview, and it was a committee. I said, fine. But that's not really, the goal was to change the image of the town from being just the mall.
Okay. Michael?
Real quick, it's the second item in a row that we've talking about lacking a traditional Main Street downtown. I think the only real answer is just to go ahead and fix the town center.
I would love to.
Sure. Okay. So with all that being said.
But I get your point, John, sorry. One more thing, is that the sculptures parks charge was, there's no there in Burlington, and you wanted to build it there.
Exactly.
Other than like the Code Factory and Paul Blart Mall Cop and the mall, Burlington doesn't really have any distinguishing characteristics. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Okay, with that being said, Mr. Sagamore, would you take a motion on this? That's how we want it. This is for approval, right?
I think you're looking for a vote, Barbara?
I am, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Just
I'll make a
on the
motion.
5 sculptures, not on all the rest.
I'll make a motion that we approve the 5 sculptures that were presented for the sculpture park.
To be put where?
To be put on the current sculpture park until such
Replace
further discussion takes place.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
So motion's made and second those. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? No? Abstain?
Thank you.
500. We're all
Thank you.
set.
May I beg a
No, you
little bit
don't.
more of your time?
What?
I just wanted to quickly update you on the Pigs on Parade project. As of this morning, all of the pigs have sponsors, so I'm
Good.
very excited about that. All 16 will be installed on the common. I'd like to invite all of you to come to the Big Pig Party on June 22nd at 10 a.m. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope you'll come and enjoy the artwork. And then one last thing, a message for Burlington children, that starting on Wednesday of this week, I am told there will be hundreds of tiny pigs scattered all over Burlington, hiding in parks and playgrounds and wherever children gather, and in little free libraries. They were coming for the Big Pig Party, their GPS system failed, and now they're lost in Burlington, and they need the children to come and find them and bring them to the party on Saturday the 22nd. So we're asking for help from all Burlington children to find the tiny pigs and bring them to the party on Saturday the 22nd.
Okay.
You can bring one too if you want.
I don't think they'll. No.
Set my kids loose.
Do we know how many there are?
How many tiny pigs?
Yeah.
Someone may have purchased 200 of them.
Just saying. Someone has to count those out, right?
Which
Would
apparently,
you like these back?
I want these back for the issue of secrecy.
If you can, you're welcome to keep them if you can just keep them and don't give them to
Okay.
I can keep a secret.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
both.
Hey, thanks, Nick.
Hey, oh my gosh.
Okay, where are we here?
Why are you going with it?
They're going.
Oh my gosh.
Proposal, pigs, DPW policy, right? That's where we are? Yep, so we moved around. Come on up. He's here. We're going to talk about the speed tables.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good, Tom Hayes, town engineer, and I guess we're here to discuss the policy for speed tables and speed humps.
Okay.
So at the last meeting, I guess we were looking for some feedback from the select board. Some of the items that were, I guess, under discussion was the percentage of abutters needed to, to kick off the petition. It said 75% in the draft document, but that was 50%, 2/3. So that is something that has to be discussed, as well as some clarification within the document that there was a little confusion on the whole 85th percentile. So, and then some of the verbiage, I guess, had to be clarified. Abutters, direct abutter, street abutter, corner abutter, those type of things be clarified. Sarah provided a lot of feedback. I don't know if you want to.
I don't know. What do you want to do? Do you
No,
want
I
to
think there's have a lot of good points here, and I think she hit a lot of stuff that, and some new stuff that came up in the, in her review of the policy. So,
Sure. Sure. So I reached out to Tom, just with a lot of feedback, and it was kind of last minute. It was today, so I apologize for waiting so long. But my feedback, and he answered all my questions. Basically, I wanted there to be more of a definition of what a speed table is and more information that we can provide to our residents, whether it's in this document or on like the website where this document is. And he said, yep, absolutely. Also, I asked for a template for this thing, a petition. There's supposedly a petition where they seek out signatures from abutters, and if we could provide a template for them with a name, address, and then clearly written on that signature page what it's asking, so people know what they're signing, and so that's consistent across the town, what we're seeing and what they're seeing. And then I had some concerns with, I know we want residents to sort of take ownership of this, but within this policy, residents are responsible for a abutter notification, public hearing, legal advertisement, and presenting the funding in front of town meeting, which I found was a little much to expect from a resident who's asking for a speed table in their neighborhood. So I think more, I don't know if either DPW or select board takes ownership of that, how that works out, but it just seems like a lot to put on the residents to take care of. And you want to pipe in anytime, all right?
well, the engineering terms, for instance, site distance and 85th percentile, those type things I think are really hard to explain to the layperson because they're engineering terms, and I could give you a whole book on site distance, but that's more for the committee, more for the traffic committee, so it's documented. So it's like when people move on and there are different people on the board or on the committee, they know what check boxes we're looking for. We're looking for say, for instance, 5 miles an hour. So it's kind of backwards. We always look at the 85th percentile. So when you set a speed limit, you're looking for 85% of the people are traveling at 30 miles an hour or lower. And that's where you set 30 miles an hour. That's kind of how you set it, according to the Federal Highway Administration standards and the MUTCD. But what we're looking for is kind of reverse that. So if the speed limit is 30 miles an hour and people are traveling 5 miles an hour or over. And so what does that mean? In our mind, 15% or more are traveling at that speed. So that's why you say these people are speeding. And I know the safety officer, in his software, he can set the enforcement speed, and it's the threshold. And then he said, what percentage are traveling at that speed or faster? And I think 15 miles an hour, or 15% should be the cutoff. So if there are 15% of the vehicles traveling above, say, 35 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone, then that should be the cutoff. That should be, say, okay, these people are speeding, and that would meet the criteria. So I can write that into the policy, so it's there. Let's see what else we have. Some of the verbiage, scheduling, like scheduling paving utility work in the next 5 years, that was intended to mean that if something is scheduled for 5 years out, say if we're doing a water job or doing paving within the 5 years, we don't want to put the speed tables in and then 5 years later tear them out. So we would wait for 5 years and coordinate the installation of these speed tables with the paving or with the utility work. So that was the intent. It wasn't really clear, so we're going to clear up that, we'll clear up that design criteria. And I think that was pretty much it. If you folks have any other thoughts.
Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom, just to limit, like, we know everyone's going to want these. Well, I should say, we think everyone's going to want these, and they have to meet their criteria. But to avoid overwhelming demand and budgeting issues, do you think it would be prudent to limit the number of installs per year?
It's all going to be based on funding. It's not cheap. We don't know what they cost because we've never done them. But if you do a little research, $5,000 to $10,000 is what they're talking per install. And every 300 feet, so if you have a 1,000-foot street, you may put 4 or 5 of them in over the course of 1,000 feet. So it runs into a lot of money.
Right, so do you think we should, at least in the beginning, just cap it at no more than, say, 5 installs a year or whatever that number you think is adequate?
I think it's just based on funding. It would be.
Mr. Chairman, right now we have funding for 0 installs. So if it's a new program, we're going to have to present it to town meeting with a method to fund it and sort of condition them that they may be seeing, more of these requests in the future in some way. And that's where, how do we get those to town meeting and what level of effort for the neighborhood to convince town meeting versus staff having to convince town meeting. Trying to convince Tom on a lot of these things is difficult to begin with, so to put the burden on him to appear before town meeting, particularly in some of those locations where they may not think it's necessary, but the neighbors think it's necessary. I think it's a different dynamic than what we typically go to town meeting with stuff we're 100% in favor of. In this case, there'll be a lot more resident input, and as you said, it may proliferate to the point where town meeting says enough is enough. I mean, where should we draw the line, and how should we present the financing part of it to town meeting?
Mr. Chairman, that allies some of my fears, because as long as the budget limits the amount we can do, because it's almost like Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. If we start doing speed tables, everybody's going to want one, I think, but.
It would seem so, yes.
Right, so at least the budget will limit the amount of installs per year. That answers my question.
Mr. Priest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom, is there any reason why we would, I'm asking this in a weird way, so I apologize, why we might consider replacing speed bumps with speed tables? Like, would that be something that we would want to take on? Or would we just keep speed bumps as they are throughout town?
Well, the only speed bumps we have are on Fox Hill.
No.
And they really, I mean, if the board wishes to replace those, that would be a good idea because they shouldn't be there.
Okay. All right. I'll end that line of questioning there and move on to something else. I'm in line with the recommendations that Sarah made. I'd love to see it all written up and put together. I think that, like, if it has to come to us for a vote, I mean, Paul, kind of back to your question, then Tom shouldn't have to present a town meeting. If we vote in favor of it, then we should have to rep it at town meeting. I mean, it seems only right.
Like a separate warrant article for speed tables that's standing, and then we list the locations and the approximate cost for town meeting.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, like we had talked about earlier around, funding mechanism, right? Like if we're starting to see these in a more consistent way, or, we wrap the notion of speed tables into a larger speed mitigation line item that we'd like to bring to town meeting, and then say, hey, once every couple of years, like we do with the sidewalks, we're going to come in front of you asking for roughly X amount of dollars for traffic mitigation, right? I think that would also mitigate the need for us to have to present every single instance of a speed table, and town meeting having to endure each speed table presentation as it came through. But I think that we should take it step by step. I'm not saying we should jump to that. And then, Tom, I'd also be open, like Sarah had said about having like a template available. I'd also be open to seeing like a link to the MUTCD PDF so folks can access it and understand. I think one of the biggest things we've run into is just folks not understanding the guidelines, or even like knowing that the guidelines exist, right? And so maybe if we could say, hey, this is built from this is why it's this way, it will help guide them down this track, as opposed to maybe pulling hard left to something else. Otherwise, I mean, I'm in favor, and we can circle back to the speed bumps later.
Like I said, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that Tom be able to compile all of the feedback that he receives tonight and he received today, and distribute a draft document to the board, and then we can bring it back at the next meeting for a formal vote.
Sure.
Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in favor of it. I think it's a very good, well-written, comprehensive policy here that we have on the table. And I really didn't have any issue except for that, well, the 75% street abutters, but I think it's important to keep it high to make sure you have full buy-in on the neighborhood wherever you're going to put them in, and also determining who exactly is the direct street abutter. I think anyone who is on the same street within the range of the tables is probably realistic. I'm open to discussion on that. And getting to what Sarah said, other than presenting at town meeting, I don't have a problem with the residents having to notify abutters and do the legal advertising. So we want them to have buy-in. If they want this, we should make sure they have a little skin in the game. So I think presenting at town meeting is a little much, but the other two I don't think are that bad. So I'm in favor of keeping it at 75. At first thought that was a little high, but I think to do this in a neighborhood, you want to make sure everyone's on board and well, a good majority, 3/4 is a good majority and in agreement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sarah, anything else?
I just have one more question. So once Tom goes back and, incorporates the feedback and revises this, and then let's say we approve it at the next meeting, what happens after that? And I don't know if it's a question for Paul, because people have been asking for this for a while. So people are going to be like, oh, they approved it, so now we can go ahead and apply. I'll get a speed table. What's the timeline on when people can start?
It would seem as though we may get inundated at first. I know that there's been a couple neighborhoods specifically that we've had discussions with. I'm assuming they may be first in line, but I think the criteria is maybe limiting in some ways, just with the understanding that not all streets are going to be MUTCD compliant for this type of installation, so we'll have to each one of them sort of see if it complies first, and that will be the first step. And from dealing with MUTCD all over the years, it seems as though many of them may not comply. So that may be our first problem, is that the request may not be compliant from the start. And then that's a no, and I guess that's a different discussion. But I guess we'll have to see, sort of, wait and see to see how it goes. And, our first one will be our first test case, and we'll try to plan around that and make improvements to the flow over time.
Okay.
Everybody else set? So, me personally, I'm not in favor of it at all. Sorry, just my thoughts on it. I think that our police department should be out there and try to do their thing, whatever it may be, slow them down. We've done it before. I think this kind of money is, I'm not going to say wasteful, but I know a bunch of other things we could put it on. I understand it's like a sidewalk committee, like we've put together at the time that we did different sidewalks and looked at it. I don't know who's compliant, who's not compliant. I just don't think we need it. And I'm going to take a lot of garbage for that comment, but it is what it is. So that's just my feeling on it. Okay? So do we need an approval tonight, or is this just going to be for discussion? It says discussion approval.
No, for tonight, we don't need an approval. Like I say, we can take the feedback that the board gave tonight and recent feedback over the past since the last meeting and sort of incorporate those changes. We'll try to get it into a draft format so that you can review it well in advance of having to vote on it. So we'll get to work on that tomorrow and try to put something together. And next meeting's on the 24th, so hopefully it'll be ready by then. We'll have town council take a look at it as well.
Perfect. Okay. So we'll just table this off till the 24th?
Yes.
Right? Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, bud.
All right.
Appreciate it.
You guys
Have a good night. Thank you. 113, discussion, Colonial Power Community Area Plan. They're here. They've waited very patiently.
Good evening.
Introduce yourself and just find that little paper in front of you, and we'll go from there. All righty?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mark Capitone, Colonial Power, 5 Mount Royal Ave, Marlboro, Mass.
Denise Allard, also from Colonial Power Group.
Thank you. Mr. Segrino, you want to start out?
Sure, I'll start it off, Chairman Randy. In the past, several years ago, the town had a very successful municipal aggregation program, which is basically a way to combine the buying power of all the residents in town to get a more favorable rate on your electricity supply, and these guys can correct me if I misspeak. We had a very successful program over a several-year period. In, I think, 2018, that program lapsed, and we submitted to the state in 2019, shortly after I accepted this position, to try to reinstate our aggregation program. We got caught up in a little bit of a kerfuffle at the state, where the state was trying to make some changes to these programs, which had been very successful, and we sort of got caught in a little bit of a quagmire up there. However, that stalemate has broken, and the state has approved us to move forward with the process. So we brought our consultants in here to talk to the board about sort of, this is the baseline presentation, you know, what an aggregation program is and how can it benefit our residents, and also to lay out a timeline as to how we could possibly put a program in place by the fall before we get into the winter heating season. So that's just a little bit of background of sort of where we are and how we got to this point today. At this point, I can turn it over to Colonial.
Right ahead.
So we were here just over a month ago asking you to make some choices on products. And the department, as we mentioned, has issued the order. You now have the ability to move forward in the marketplace. So that 5-year wait hopefully is going to be worth it this coming winter. So what do we have here? Again, I just want to kind of give us a baseline. As the administrator mentioned, we're talking about Eversource bills and on your electricity. This is the supply portion of the bill, and this is the town going out to bring a choice that has not existed in the marketplace for the last 6 or so years. In doing so, what we really need here is some time frames on when we go out to the marketplace, when we'll look at the bids, who will sign off on those bids, and then maybe a time frame on when we get this started. So what we're contemplating is bringing the administrator some pricing just to show him where the market currently is. Right now, Eversource has said that their price starting in August will be about $15.7. We think the marketplace is maybe about a penny or so better than that, maybe $2. Really depends on our market conditions and the load profile of Burlington. But what we're looking to do right now is to say, okay, the administrator will look at that, decide what his time frame or the town's time frame is, and when we bring him actually executable pricing. I think we talked, Paul, about maybe next week we'll bring you just some indicative pricing, kind of show you where the market is today for a September start. Doesn't mean anything at all, just to get him acclimated. Here's where the market is, this is what we're looking at, and maybe a possible time frame. Depending on the board's liking, we could move forward as soon as, Denise, maybe a September start if we move swiftly.
Yeah, a September start would be tight. The town would have to sign something by the end of June because there's a consumer notification mailer. It's statute required. It would go out to everyone who is currently on Eversource basic service for their electricity, notifying them that they're going to get automatically switched to the town's program unless they opt out within a 30-day period. So the town would sign by the end of June. That mailer would go out by the middle of July, giving the 30 days till the middle of August. It leaves like a 2-week window at the end of July for the winning supplier to troubleshoot some account enrollments with the utility. And then on the September meter read, folks would be enrolled in the program. If you were to look to an October start, that all backs up by a month. Gives you an extra.
Can I just ask you guys to just give a baseline report as to what aggregation is, how it works, sort of what will happen if we go out to bid, we get a better rate, if we choose to move, if the board chooses to move forward with the program, and sort of you can give procedures for both the board and for the residents who may be watching at home who haven't seen one of these in a few years.
In a few years, absolutely. So what we're talking about right now is our ability to enter the marketplace. So from that perspective, we need some direction from the board. And again, I'm going to make sure that everyone understands. We're talking about an electricity bill and the supply portion of the electricity bill. And it's about the town creating a choice that hasn't existed in the marketplace in the last 5 or 6 years here in Burlington, allowing the consumers a choice. So this is an opt-out aggregation, meaning when you got this mailing, if you didn't do anything, you'd automatically be enrolled. But I just want to make sure that you understand, that means that if at any point in the future you're unhappy with the choice of staying in the program, you can get out of the program and you can always come back to the program. This program is about choice and education in the electricity markets, which, again, you've been through this in the past, but moving forward, it's truly about choice and what the townspeople would have a choice. You've all been through a terrible spike the last 2 years with energy prices. Many communities that had these programs, you should have had one, but the state kerfluffle, if you will, didn't allow this to happen on time, so you didn't have this choice. But had the town had the choice, you would have had an option that anyone could have opted into or out of, depending on their prior choice. Before this program starts, the biggest piece that we have in front of us is the education, right? And it's one of the reasons we think it's a September start is a fairly aggressive start. October might give us more time, and in the middle of the summer, depending if people are away or not, it may not be something that we want to pursue. What I will tell you is you probably get a little bit of a better price by pushing things, and the only reason being September is a shoulder month, might bring down pricing ever so slightly. Before this program starts, we're going to make sure that everyone that's going to be enrolled in the program gets a mailing. Lisa, do you happen to bring the mailing by any chance?
Yeah, they're just going to get it. It's going to be an envelope. This is the City of Boston's, but it would have the Burlington seal, and I know folks might still throw it out, but we're going to try it. We're going to also give you an electronic copy to post on the town's website and push out through social media, letting folks know that this is a valid mailing, and it's got important information about their electricity program.
And the one thing I wanted to state is, on that mailing, it's a direct apples-to-apples comparison. Right. Here's the town's rate. This is the Eversource basic service rate. This is no games. There's no showmanship. There's no fees or penalties or hidden costs. This is a town program to bring choice in the electricity markets that hasn't existed in the last 6 years. So basically tonight, what we're looking to do is bring some of that pricing so we can start to find out where we want to be. Do we want to do something a little bit more aggressive? That might be September. Do we want to go to October? And by that doesn't mean that we're going to make a choice for October right now. Paul might see the pricing and say, I just don't think it's the right time or the right savings. That could be, you might not enter the marketplace till October, November, or December. Now, when we get to December, I want to tell you, we would say, geez, now you're getting a little bit late, meaning the rate's going to change in February. We don't want to be seen as this is the rate and then Eversource changes a month and a half later. So all of those things come into play here, which is why we're trying to bring the information to you as quickly as we possibly can, so that when we say that the rate's going to be there for September, that would mean that our rate compared to Eversource's would be there for September, October, November, December, and January.
So these programs have been very successful throughout the state. Many of our neighboring communities have had one. Like I say, we attempted to have one since 2019. But I do want you to, if you just sort of walk through, we say go ahead today. What happens next? Can you walk through some of the steps just so that everybody's very understanding of how this thing would work, what would happen to residents' electric bills?
Yes.
What options the residents would have at that point. If you just sort of give a step-by-step, assuming that we agreed to this today, what would happen?
And I'm going to use September as a fictitious date. So we ended up bringing final pricing, and it got signed off on by the end of June for a September meter read start. So at that point, we would then be pulling together a mailing. A select board would be announced, but when the mailing went out, the goal here is to inundate, because what we have found over the last 20 years is when we have an actual date, that's when we make sure that we get something here at the select board. Hopefully we can do something in the newspaper, push out some tweets, the mailing's going out when it all happens, as well as we just need to find out where exactly. I know I did the last time we had a plan. I was at the Council on Aging. We did a couple of different in-person meetings right there. They maybe want to have something at the library or here, just an informational session. All of that would be happening when the mailing mailing went out, that mailing will go out in July. So sometime between July and August, while that mailing is out there in the public, we would have all of that information out there so that people could ask questions and get things answered. Starting with the customer would get that mailing, and then starting with their September meter read, they would be enrolled in the program. They wouldn't see anything on their September bill because they'd start to accrue at that time, at whatever that town rate is. In October, they would actually see Town of Burlington Ag, XYZ supplier. That's the only change on the supplies portion, the generation services charge that says basic service. That's the only thing that would change for them. If there was a power outage, the problem with their bill, any of those things, those questions go directly to Eversource East. There's no problem. That's all Eversource does now is their poles and wires. Much like Verizon, they take care of their poles and wires. Eversource takes care of their poles and wires. If somebody received that piece of mail and decided, I'm uncomfortable, they simply sign that, the opt-out card that's there, go on the internet, give us a call a supplier, or call Eversource. The goal here is not to keep people in the program, it's to bring choice. What we are hoping is through this program, we can drive down cost and create stability. Unfortunately, the way the utilities work, they can't have any stability. Every 6 months, their rate has to change. Yours does not. So the goals here are stability and hopefully savings over the contract. Again, couldn't be easier for the citizens. If they wish to participate, they don't have to do anything. But to get out of the program, it's not going to be, like you see in these third-party contracts, nobody's there to pick up the phone. They're having trouble getting out of the program. Those issues Colonial will take care of. And there won't be, 3 months later that the customer's getting out of the program. So this is about literally choice. And I think I've got everything there that you were looking for.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear to the board that if we move in this direction, everybody's in unless they opt out. And that's just the way the program works statewide.
That's correct. It's part of the statute.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go first. So my problem is this. You put everybody in the program. You say there's a choice. There's really not a choice for the seniors because sometimes they don't understand what's going on, and they may not have somebody in the house that does understand it. I've been on the board for 9 years, and I believe you were here.
That's correct.
A long time ago.
Yes.
I was sitting where Sarah is right now. So I was still here. I don't think my personal opinion is, I like the program personally for someone younger that's able to understand what that comes in the mail. When that comes in the mail, there's going to be a lot of seniors and a lot of people that won't understand it. You're telling us right now that there's 30 days to opt out of it. If they don't opt out in 30 days, what do they do at that point?
So then they would be enrolled in the program, but they could opt out at day 50. They could opt out day 70. They could opt out any
Well, they
time.
could opt out. So the choice is they're already enrolled in the program.
You can opt out prior to.
That's not their choice. You're putting them in the program.
But you could opt out prior to it starting, and you'd never be enrolled in the program.
I think this I'm going to let everyone speak, trust me on this. So I think that this program for myself would be great for me personally. But I'm thinking of the town in general, as the town of Burlington. I'm trying to put it in good terms that we have a lot of seniors in this town, and I think they'd be very, very confused on how to get out of it if they didn't understand it.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I would say was we wouldn't move forward with the program unless it was providing savings from what folks were already
Right.
paying.
Oh, yep, that's what we did last time. Yep, we
There
did.
may be some folks upset that we opted them in.
Oh, there was last time. That's what
There always is, I think.
That's what I'm going with.
But like I say, I think what we have on our side is being able to show that we actually saved you money by putting you in the program. So
Okay.
I do understand what you're saying, and then the opt-in, opt-out is one of the rubs with the program for sure.
Right. Okay. I'm going to keep everything else for a little while, so I'm going to start with Nick. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'll start with my first question, which is, and I have to assume that this is probably the dumbest question ever to be asked, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Is there ever an opportunity, ever a time where this program will be more expensive than Eversource?
Good question.
Excellent question, and the answer is the possibility absolutely exists anytime that the Eversource rate changes. I'm just going to give you an example. So we set a rate of 10 cents, and it's 10 cents, and Eversource is at 13, but we did a 24-month term. But after the first year, rates, for whatever reason, came tumbling down, and they're now 9.5 cents for Eversource. We would be over that rate for a short time, for the next 6 months. I don't know. We could say the next one it went down to 9 cents, and we would still be over, and then we would go back out into the marketplace and see what we could find in the marketplace.
Okay, so you're saying that really the only time we'd ever actually be over Eversource is in a situation where the variable rate drops while we're still in a fixed term.
Correct.
But we would never have to be forced to pick a rate that's higher than what Eversource is offering. Meaning that as we look into the market, we'd have the opportunity to pick something either equal to or lower than what Eversource is offering.
To start the program, that's a correct statement.
Okay, so what happens moving forward?
And just going forward, every time you sign for the fixed term you sign, yes, but then you're going to sign another contract, and every time you enter into a new contract, you're likely going to know what the utility rate is or have a good projection.
Sure.
So you would never sign a new contract, but you have no control over the next 6 months for Eversource or the 6 months after that.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So that, go ahead.
So, Nick, just to be clear, on the town's last program, you guys can correct me on the term, was that 2-year or 1 year?
Yeah, I think it was 18 months or something of that nature.
Like an 18-month program, and that actually happened in the last 4 or 5 months of the program.
Okay.
But if any resident who had concerns about that, the town was able to demonstrate that by being in the program, all the built-up savings far exceeded those few months.
Of the difference.
Right.
Aside from that, the resident can opt out at any time. So if that were to happen, the entire town can opt out of the program.
Right.
Again, we'd have to communicate that, but
Okay. That brings me to my next question, which is, on average, help me understand this, what do terms look like?
So that really depends on market. So right now, given the elevated price, terms are shorter.
Okay.
3 years ago, we were getting people in literally as long as we possibly could, 42, what have you. Again, at 14 cents from a historic standpoint, we would say that's current market, in that range. We don't want to buy that high price for such a long period. So we would try to do something short. And I'm not going to tell you that I ever saw the 25 cents that you guys went through, but people that said, yep, we're at historic lows, 9, 10 cents, we're going to do this for 36 months. Or when that shock happened, it was just the benefit of it. That's the stability that consumers really like. It's really that whipsaw rate that drives everyone crazy. Sure.
So when we bring pricing, we'll show Paul the 6 through 36 months and 6-month intervals for all the different products, and then we'll talk through the different terms and see the difference in pricing and what kind of is palatable, to the town. You want to go out a year, you want to go out 2 years based on what we're seeing in the futures market. But you're going to see all those numbers.
Okay.
We're not just going to bring you like a 12-month number and say this, yeah.
Right, of course. No, I appreciate that. Okay. Let me see. If during our term, and you may have already answered this, if during our term rates drop, is there an opportunity to ditch our term for a new term?
So there is a thing called a blend and extend. All I would like to say is it does come with some issues, right? It's difficult to get some market participation on that, so we would go to the same supplier and we could go further. I would have a discussion about whether it was better to just sign a contract that starts at the end of the contract that we're at this time. I'm just going to give you, we're at 10 cents, market sells off, and believe it or not, the market, we can do 6 cents for 36 months out. We could then sign a contract at the end of your contract for the next 36 months at that 6 cents.
Okay.
So it brings a whole bunch of choices that don't currently exist to you.
Right.
As well as people that have been in the market that understand the market, because normally what you're going to see as the market begins to fall, you get a whole bunch of offers from people. Well, those offers are a little bit disingenuous because you kind of know where the market's coming down to. And so they lock you in at, I'm making this up, 15, they know the market's going to 12. And that's not a very good deal for you.
Right.
Okay.
The one piece of this that I think I get a little glazy in the eyes over, and to be fair, we're talking a lot of hypotheticals, so I can understand how anybody could get a little glazy. That's no offense at all.
I fully understand. I fully understand.
Is the product offerings, the 3 rectangles you have as part of the backup, as best you can, walk me through that, right? So are we going to be having 3 product offers as the town? So residents will be able to look at 3 options that we're providing?
So the answer is yes, there will be 3 options. But everyone will be moved into the most economical.
Right.
So the one with the least amount of green.
The default lowest dollar sign, I'm with you.
Yes, and then after that, should somebody want to opt up to a greener product, they will have the ability to make that choice.
Okay.
But everyone will be moved to the low product, and if they wish to say, I wanted something green, or maybe even the highest 100% renewable product, they'll have that ability. Again, I'm going to choice, right? So that's what the town's doing, is bringing you choices.
Yeah.
But you won't need to do anything to receive the most economical priced product.
And that will all be spelled out on the mailer. There's a table that shows the standard. It says you'll be moved here. These are optional. If you want to do a higher renewable energy content, go on the website, call Colonial Power Group, and you can opt up to those other. But it'll be on all the paperwork, clearly, that you're being moved to the most economical. And if you want additional green, you can choose.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I think I'm getting my head around this, which is, I mean, for me, obviously important because I have to vote on this. But because obviously if we're having a time understanding, to Joe's point, we want to make sure that everyone else understands this, right?
Completely understand.
And Mark, I think you're spot on with the words you use, inundate, right? Like we want to make sure we over communicate all of this, right? Multiple touch points. I would even go so far as to make sure, Paul, that we have an email, like a town email, and a number that folks can reach out to if they're having a hard time and they want to talk to someone from the town of Burlington about this. Just so that we can make sure that we are covering our bases. I know they can, in the mailer, there'll be other opportunities and ways for folks to reach out, but I know every once in a while there's someone who's like, I don't know who to talk to, and they call town hall, right? Because they know where that number is, they know how to get a hold of it.
And the one thing I want to say is, you're the only one that can validate the program, only because of the problems with third-party supply. Some people just want to make sure that the program is for real. It isn't some third-party supplier that stuck a seal on and put this out there. So when the town says yes, it's a program, feel free to then pass the call on to us so that the customer's fine. Because all we do is answer these questions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, I always get a little leery around programs that automatically opt you into things, right? I know folks will absolutely feel that way, but if we can bring savings to the residents, I mean, gosh, let's do it, And I think that as long as we have a strong communications plan and, everything is clear and spelled out in black and white, then we can, help folks. I think if there's nothing else, that's our job, is to help folks. Give them a few, bucks back in a month, dollars that are gonna matter. All right, my wife went food shopping last night. We measured up over $400 for us and our 4 kids. All right, that's like it'll last like a week and a half. Okay, so like costs are insane, right? And if I can have $5 back, I'll friggin' take it, man. I will take that $5.
Yep.
So and $5 adds up over the course of a year.
And through the course of a town, it just
right.
Yes.
Exactly. And you're right. Going to 25 cents, was insane. Right. I mean, we kept the lawyer on the line for an extended period of time just to chew him a new one about how frustrated we were, and he wasn't even here for that. So I mean, I'm in favor of this so long as we really communicate the hell out of this and make sure folks feel supported along the way. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to throw out there,
Yes.
in 2020 and moving forward, we received a multitude of calls from residents asking for this program as well. So I just wanted to let the board know about that. We're unable to act at that time because of the state situation, but, you know, between our office and Representative Gordon's office, we got a multitude of phone calls from residents about this.
Yeah, okay.
Well, before we move on to the other select person here, I think my big thing is the fact that we're trying to get it out there. Like, how are we going to get out there to the public that they can opt out of this? That's the biggest thing. I think like Nick always says, is, you know, getting the word out there, figure out how the best way it is. So that's all. Right now, Michael, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very happy to see this going forward. And last time you were here, you told me to be back in July, and you're here in June, so you're already beating your deadlines. And yeah, people, as Paul just said, have been clamoring for this, especially with the rise in energy costs and electricity costs. I mean, I've been following up literally, like I told you last time, every 3 months since I got on the board to see where it was on the state, and I'm very happy that we're finally at a point where we can kind of move forward. My questions, a couple of them have already been taken. Nick, that wasn't a stupid question because that was one of my questions about if we could be higher, actually, than what Eversource is offering. That's a very good question. Another question I had is, do you need a minimum number of people to not opt out for us to stay in it? Or say a bunch of people just say, no, I want to see what happens. Is there a minimum number of participation that?
Great question. Just want you to know it's a contract, and I'm going to give you a scenario. It's a 36-month contract, and for whatever reason, Eversource is under, and every single person but one opts out. Anyone could opt back in for that price. It doesn't matter if there's 0 customers. That supplier is going to offer that rate for the 36 months, contractually obligated through the town's contract.
And is the rate better if there are more people opting in, or is it the same?
That's the benefit of aggregation, because you have all the customers, and I can tell you right now, somewhere between 5% and 7% of the basic service customers are going to opt out of this program. The suppliers know that as well, and they factor that into their pricing, and that's how you're able to get such a good price.
And how long are the terms or the contracts that you guys have? Are they 6 months? Am I following that correctly?
It really depends on the futures curve. So it could be 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, or 36. 36 is a little long given the elevated prices, so we'll take a look at the curve and see where that plays out. But we've been doing contracts somewhere between 12 and 24 months. There's been 2 communities that decided to just, given what has happened, they wanted the stability of a 36-month contract, just given the instability in the global, you know, Ukraine, the Middle East, those kind of things. Just they wanted the protection, so they're happy to just put that out there for their residents.
And is that something Colonial determines, like we're going to go in with a 12 or?
We're going to show you all of that, and then we're going to give you our take on the market, where we are today from a historic standpoint, and then ultimately it's the town's decision. We don't make that decision. We're happy to help you make that decision, but ultimately all the decisions are yours.
And you said that you have a choice to go into the other programs, the ones that's a little more aggressive, or is there a cost to any of the programs?
None. Switch at any point, go back, go up to 100%, down to some other 50%, then all the way down. You can only do unlimited read, but there's no fee or charge to do so.
Great. Well, thank you for answering my questions. I think it's a great program. I think I'm very happy to see it back, and I definitely am hearing Joe loud and clear that we have to do a great job of publicizing this to the residents, especially our older generation, and let them know exactly what's happening and make sure everyone understands what's going on. But I think it's a great thing. And again, people have been asking me for this and clamoring for this and asking, why don't we have this? We used to have it. Why would we ever leave? So very happy to see it back, and excited to move forward. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sarah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you both for coming out and helping us to push this forward. I did have a couple of questions. And I think the last time we spoke, I had a concern about the September timeframe, and thinking that it was a little aggressive, considering all of the education we're going to have to be doing to get the community informed on this in such a tight timeframe when people are kind of traveling and summer vacations and all that. However, is your opinion that September rates in general are lower
So no magic, just, it's a lower month. It's what we call a shoulder month. So it's not, you don't have to use a lot of heat or a lot of air conditioning in September. So it does actually help bring down prices, but it's only 1 month. It really depends on, it would make a bigger difference if it was only a 12-month contract, a little bit less with 24, and even less with 36 months. So we just wanted to give you the option. For us, it's not the determining factor for me, September. October would do the same thing. You still should get a favorable rate.
Okay. And some questions on the mailer. The contact info on the mailer, that would be to you guys. So that mailer would not have...
It would mention the town, but the contact number would be the supplier and us.
Okay.
Whoever the winning supplier was, that would have their number and Colonial's number on that mailer.
And when you send those mailers out, just historically, are you inundated with calls?
So calls are probably no more, and I promise you this, I've done it from the smallest town in Massachusetts to the largest city. First 2 weeks, you're going to receive some phone calls because people are going to be nervous. You might receive less only because people may remember the old program, but within 2 weeks, phones just stop ringing because everyone's comfortable that the power hasn't gone off and issues like that. But I would say you have about 10 to 14 days where you'll be getting questions, and then after that, the program will just move on quietly. That's the sign of a good program.
So there's a postcard in here that people can sign and there's a posted page envelope. They can just stick it in the mail and send it back if they want to opt out. Like Mark said, they can call the supplier, they can call us. There's a web address on Colonial's website for the town of Burlington. They can go there, and there's a big orange button that'll say opt out. I know that doesn't help seniors if they don't use the computer, but other folks, they can just have their bill and they can opt out in under a minute. So there's many mechanisms, but they can always use the phone and call us directly, and we'll get them out before the 30 days.
And I fully agree. The Council on Aging, that's the population we want to hit. And I just want you to know, I'm going to be at that meeting. I'm not going to send someone. I'm going to be there. I've been doing this for 20 years. Everyone will leave that meeting with every single question answered. Normally when we leave there, we say, okay, everyone gets this, and that's perfectly fine. But it does take the meeting because most people in that age group, when you talk about these things, and some of it, the opt-out is something I can't overcome. That's just the program, and I apologize for that, but that's how we get the more favorable pricing for everyone involved. But we'll show them right there how to opt out. It's not a problem at all.
And then, again, with the mailer, that only goes to people who are on the basic plan.
That is correct. Only basic service. If you had chosen a third-party supplier, Direct Energy or Constellation, you can always join the program. We ask you to make sure there are no fees and penalties to leave your program, but you will not, I repeat, you will not be opted into this program.
You will not be opted into this program, and you will not be alerted by mailer.
Correct.
The program is an option.
At that time, that's correct.
Right, at that time, which is something for us to think about in reaching that community.
Populace.
And I think I asked Paul at one meeting, how many of those people are there? And it's not something.
We don't get that information. We're working on that right now with the DPU. There's some new guidelines that are being generated, and it looks like we're going to be able to get that information in the future. I'm not sure for launch of this program. We'll try, but they can't give us, we're not allowed to get that information right now, but hopefully we'll have it in the future, and it'll make future mailings more targeted, but we don't have a specific list of who's on third-party supply.
We do think by July we would have access to that information, so there would be 2 letters that we could send out. One's the opt-out mailing, and then another one's an informational mailing to those customers on third-party supply that says, hey, this program exists. If you're interested, go to our website, give us a call, so forth and so on. Here's the basic service price. Here's our price. Look here on your bill and see what you're paying.
Okay, great. And then lastly, since you guys have been doing this for so long, I'm sure you've heard every question in the book, but is there a document or a list of FAQs that you can provide to us?
Absolutely.
So, because there's already been 2 questions tonight that I've heard multiple times in the past. So, like, obviously, these are questions that we're going to be getting, and it would be good to have a document that just sort of out.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Kind of part of the information plan.
And that's all my questions.
Thank you. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I like having choices. I like having choices that provide potential savings for residents. I'm just going to try to put this into, I'm going to try to liken it to, not a lot of people know about aggregation. I mean, I had to educate myself on it too, but is this similar to, let's say, fixed mortgage versus variable rate mortgage? In other words, variable rates go up and down, but fixed mortgages stay the same. You know what you're getting. Is it like akin to that?
From one standpoint, the answer is yes, right? They're not allowed to have a fixed rate for anything more than 6 months, and then it just changes every 6 months. Exposes them to the short-term marketplace much more than you may be or may not be. It just depends on the timing. The one thing I want to caution against is everyone here believes that Eversource is out buying on your behalf. Unfortunately, that's not what they do. They buy according to the Department of Public Utilities. So believe it or not, 3 years ago when they had to go out and buy, they bought 50% of what they needed for the 12 months that's required. They wouldn't have done that because they would have tried to buy in a more advantageous way, but they just follow a process. It's mechanical. Every 6 months, they buy 50% of their needs for the 12 months.
So just the concept of a fixed payment versus
something variable that you don't know, yes.
And my last question actually is with Mr. Sagarino. Paul, would this qualify for a town reverse town call, or is this a private industry?
No, I think we could consider the reverse 911 system.
Because I've gotten 2 of those tonight while we were here. I mean, that's effective.
I just wanted to mention, lots of communities don't like the reverse 911. I can tell you that we've done it twice, and it is the most effective way to get people engaged. When they hear the voice, it's someone from town, here's the program, you're going to get this in the mail. I'm from the city of Marlborough, and the mayor did it, and I've never received more phone calls. I'm just going to tell you, it is the most effective. Now, some people say, other towns that I've mentioned it to, that's 911, we want to keep it for emergencies and things of that nature. The city of Marlborough didn't have a problem. This is just up to the town. I just wanted to tell you, tremendously effective.
Well, one of the ones we got tonight was a townwide shred day. That's not a 911 call, but it's still something the residents should be aware of. But I just wanted to make sure this would qualify for that. I'm all set, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Paul, anything else from you?
I have nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So this is basically, where are we here? Discussion. Nothing we don't have to vote on right now, right?
No, I mean, I'll come back to you once we receive a plan, and I'll update the board as to when and how we move forward.
Okay. If we could, try to figure out something along the ways. Next time we meet them, we're going to get the seniors involved in this really big, whether it's over there, have a meeting over there privately, not privately, but for the seniors at the Murray Kelly wing. We do it some night. I'll be there.
Yep.
If that's possible, we can get everybody on board for this thing. Maybe send out a 911 call, let everyone know.
Might cause a kerfluffle.
Yeah, maybe. But anyway, okay. So we're all set, discussed it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you both.
Appreciate it. And
Appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
good luck.
Thank you.
We'll still be here. Thank you. Okay, here we go. Citizens time. Hey, everybody's cheering back there. All right. Wait. Hold on. Everyone, you guys are so excited to come up here and talk to us. All right? So are you all one group, or is each person here for a separate entity on citizens time?
Two of us, the same. Two of us are going to...
All you guys are the same? That group's the same?
Yes.
And you're not? And you are? Okay. All right. So why don't we hear from the gentleman first, because he's all by himself. We'll bring him up, and then we have a group right there, okay? And then, because I know there's going to be a little bit more banter with a group than there is with a single. Once again, we all know who you are, but could you state your name and sign in the paper for us, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bob Young, Three Valley Circle. I have a couple of points, and then I'd like to hopefully get into my main point for coming here tonight. The town election was April 6th, 2024. Today is the 10th, I believe, of 2024, June. So over 2 months. And the Council on Aging portion of our website, I was looking at it, and it lists Mike Runyon as a select board representative. So I have two things that you don't have to answer right now, but number one, has he been replaced? And number two, as far as a rep, and I'd like to get that obviously updated. It's old. The next thing. Your portion of the website, and this has gone on for a very, very, very long time. 3 people on this committee, their personal information and their picture line up perfectly. Mr. Morandi and Mike Espaillo, you have your information, and then your 2 pictures are below. They're not lined up properly. That would need to be corrected, and that's been a very, very, very long time. This one came up tonight. Now, I spoke with Mr. Sangarino recently, and I think he said he was here 19 years. Most of you on this committee have been here for a while. I've been up here for a few meetings. I went and used the men's room. The light was on when I went in. And then when I left, I noticed there was a little sign. It says, hey, shut the light off, blah, blah, blah. I assume it's the same in the women's room. I don't use that. But, I mean, why can't we have a motion sensor? That would seem to be, it's 2024. I don't know why we have to have a sign and people have to shut it off. This last gentleman, I don't know if he's a consultant or a salesman, really. I don't know what his role is, but it sounded like he was a salesman. And as far as I'm concerned, I think it's outrageous that the state put in that you have to opt out on your own. I mean, that's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. And I appreciate your comments about seniors, but about everybody. People are busy. They may not see that. It might get thrown in the wherever. We should not, it's just like a door-to-door salesman. I didn't ask for you to come here. Maybe I want it, maybe I don't, but it should never. Now, I'd like to find out if we can get a waiver, on that. Okay. So, and what could go wrong? I was sitting over there and I looked up and I remembered a company called Enron. A lot of those guys and women went to prison and they were an aggregator. They were big in California and it blew up in everybody's face. The park in Houston used to be called Enron Park. Not anymore, because a lot of them are in jail. So when it sounds too good to be true, maybe it is. And saving $5 or $4, I don't know. That doesn't sound like a good reason to move. All right, my next point, final point. We had Memorial Day just a few days ago. And I've always made it a point to feel it's my civic duty to attend the Memorial Day festivities and also Veterans Day, before I came to this town and while I'm in this town. I used to see, now, the chairman and Mr. Teagues were at the Memorial Day event the other day. I was glad to see him. I may have missed other people. Maybe you were there. I don't know. But I think it's incumbent on elected officials, if they're the leaders, they need to lead. And some people may say, oh, they didn't show up, I don't have to show up. But
Mr. Young, you're at 4 minutes.
okay. So hopefully I made my point about that last point. I'd like to see people at the Veterans Day in November. I don't know why they didn't go, but it was noted by me that they weren't there. So, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the extra time. You want me to sign this?
If you could, yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for letting me go first. Appreciate that.
No worries.
Of course, it should be ladies first, so.
Well, I know it's supposed to be ladies first, but I knew you had some stuff on there that...
Thank you, Bill.
Have a good. It's live. All right, ladies. Sorry about that, but
That's okay.
come on down.
Did I just hear that we only have 4 minutes? Oh, we have 4 minutes.
We did not know this, so either after
You're supposed to have 3.
Really?
I let it go for 4 because he was on such a good roll. So,
Are you being facetious?
no, I'm being dead serious.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
So I'll.
It keeps things limited, so that way there, we don't talk for an hour on.
Okay.
So we get directly to the point, we know what's going on, and we go from there.
We might have to come back, but
Yeah.
Well, if you could just introduce yourselves, well, I think we all know who you are, but if you could introduce
So
yourself.
what I learned sitting there is if you folks don't speak into your microphone, we don't hear well back there because of the sound of the air.
Are you sure it's our microphone?
This microphone works
Are
well.
you sure it's our microphone?
Well,
Because I can't hear all the time.
no, yes, I'm sure it should be, because look where they're located. I mean, these microphones work fine, but
All
don't
right, you
charge
ready?
this as a minute.
The
It's
time
just-
starts now.
Okay.
Go.
Houston, we have a problem.
Okay.
I'll consider you, the board, NASA. In essence, I'm a town, my name is Myrna Saltman. I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 2, so I represent the legislative portion of town. Mr. Sagarino is the executor of the town, and I'll consider you people the Supreme Court. The problem is the older people for the past 3 years who exercise over in the Human Resource Building in 2 different locations, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, up in the gym and in the Murray K room. We have been uprooted for the past 3 years, and this is no way to treat the valuable asset that we are to the town. 3 years ago, we had the pandemic, and we got moved out of the gym because a camera went in so that a virtual could happen. And there was like 1 person in the gym, and we moved down in our time slot. Last year, we got ousted from the upstairs gym over to Grandview. As a group, we went before the Recreation Commission, which is elected. We went before the Council on Aging, which Mr. Sagarino appoints those people, telling them that we're losing our place to exercise, to no avail. They didn't support us. I then spoke to Mr. Sagarino, who explained that those committees, the Council on Aging, the Recreation, are independent fiefdoms, and they make their own decisions. He has no jurisprudence over them. That was startling, but you learn in life. So the exercise instructors we have, Sophia at Murray K room and Judy upstairs, are paid for by Leahy. They don't cost the town anything. We have 25 to 35 people upstairs in the gym with Judy. In the Murray K room, we have about 40 older people there, and they're there religiously, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And to make this shorter, we're being dumped again, and there was an upheaval, and so the upstairs gym is being used by Recreation, that is their domain, and the people that exercise there have to move over to Grandview again on Wednesdays. There's no equipment over at Grandview. We're upstairs in the gym. They use the basketballs, the weights, the belts, the jump rope, whatever. There's nothing over there at Grandview. So what I'm saying is it's a problem that's been reoccurring. It hasn't been solved. And the reason we came here tonight is to ask how you can help us, how you, as our highest elected board, can help solve this problem.
I just want to just rectify a little bit, I'm Paula Anton. After we went to the Rec Commission, Brendan and Kelly and 3 of us did sit down and talk. And we have had, for the past year up until this point, it's been okay. We have not been ousted, we have not had our times changed, et cetera, et cetera. And Brendan did say at that time that he couldn't promise anything for the summer, which is understandable. They do a phenomenal job with the children's programs in the summertime. But all we ask for is 2 hours a week, Monday and Wednesday, 10 to 11 in the gym. That's all we want, and we can't even get that. we have been put into Grandview for July and August, and we only have 3 weeks in July, 3 Wednesdays in July, and 2 Wednesdays in August, because the rec department is also using Grandview. We're just pushed out. Nope, it's like, we don't matter. Seriously. That's how we have felt. And I just want to mention one other thing in relation to this. Before all this, in November of 2022, we really wanted a third class. We wanted a Friday class. We asked Margie Ettman, the Director of Council on Aging. She kept saying no. We asked, she kept saying no. So we read, I won't be that long, we wrote a letter to Leahy, the community relations, who pays for the classes. It was signed by every single individual in that class.
Okay.
That was ceased.
We're going to do this. You're at 4 minutes and 49 seconds. Okay? So we're past that time. I understand that you signed papers and we did all that kind of stuff, but I have to keep everything as fair as I can when we do this. Okay? So now we understand what's going on with the rec department and your senior center. Mr. Sagarino heard everything?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask one question?
Absolutely, sir.
Myrna, Paula, is it the bigger problem the time or the location?
It's the location. Just as with the sculpture park, location, location, location. That's the same problem with the seniors in their exercise class.
But I think the time is an issue also because the instructors only have
Okay.
that certain time.
A little bit of both, and that's the only dialogue we're gonna have.
Okay.
Like I said, I told Mr. Young this too.
Yeah.
We don't have dialogue with this. We got everything down there. We'll look into it for you, and either Mike personally or Mr. Sagarino will get in touch with you to find out what's going on, okay?
You want us to sign the paper here?
Sure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And Paul, you said the government review is not on,
Correct, that's on.
taken out.
Onto a
So we did the citizens' time. We're at the license approvals. License
There might be
approval.
somebody else out there.
Was it? Oh, is there anybody else on citizens' time out there? I'm sorry, we're still there. No, you're all the same, and there's nobody online with a hand up?
Nope.
Okay, all right, good, okay. Thank you, Jim. I'm going to miss that. All right, so 116 approvals, license rate and changes. All right? Mr. Sagarino, this you or John? This is you. All right, go right ahead. Hold on 1 second, Mr. Ladies, hello? If you could just go outside and have your conversation, would be great. All right? You don't have to leave, but you can't stay here, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, John. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just, we're bringing this back, we were here at a meeting a month or so ago with the same rates, and we tabled it to have a further discussion with 1 or 2 members. We've done that, and so we're just coming back to you now and take a vote.
Yes, we have. We had a great conversation. Thank you for that. And give me 1 second here. 2612. I'm back to my screen here. We'll just go quickly. Would you like us to do one by one, or would you like us to approve the whole thing at once?
I think it could be approved as presented unless there was going to be some sort of change.
Okay, so I'm going to go through the list real quick, and I'll just read these off. If somebody has an issue with one of them, we'll just hold it, and then we'll go from there if we need to talk about it. So seals and weights and measures, anybody have an issue with that one? Amusements, Class 1 and Class 2. Entertainment, in-holder. Theater, particular, did I say it right? Wear, livery taxes per vehicle. Second-hand dealer, fortune teller. So no one said anything, so I'm assuming, Mr. Denizio, we can go right through the whole thing and approve it all at once. Any questions on this one? Anybody? Everyone shaking their head no?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve all license rate changes as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those against? Abstained? 500 passes. September town meeting warrant article. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Selectman Priest had asked that we keep this as a standing agenda item as we move forward through to the summer. I know it's the board's initiative to present a zoning change for an electronic banner, sign, message board, whatever you want to call it, at the corner of Bedford and Cambridge on the Common, so we can continue to update the board as we move through the summer. We have a memo coming from the police traffic safety officer. We're working on the dimensions of, a sign similar to the one that was presented to town meeting the last time in terms of the dimensions to make sure that we hit the actual zoning and everything right on the head. I know that there have been a couple of use policies distributed amongst the board, so we can also we'll be looking to the board to produce one of those in terms of a select board policy on the use of the electronic sign.
Yep.
So those are some of the things that we have been working on in the administration office, and I don't know if there's anything the board wants to add for tonight or talk about related to this, but we'll keep this on the agenda as we move forward through to September town meeting.
Okay. Anything you want to speak about?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll forward it to Paul, who can forward it to everybody else. Town council did provide a template policy for us to look at. So when looking at, town meeting's objections, the last time we discussed this, I think the policy was a big piece of it. And we want to make sure that, we can at least have a solid draft policy heading into town meeting. I have taken a look at the old presentation. I think, updating it with the information that Paul's working on, with the police and, getting the dimensions laid out with Tom, I think will provide more clarity and understanding for town meeting to take a look at everything. And I think once we have that in a good spot, we'll share that around. I wanted to ask Paul because it's a zoning article, from a time perspective for town meeting, it has to be in July.
June 24th?
June 24th?
June
25th.
25th,
So we have one more meeting to discuss, and then it has to go in by the next day. From that point to town meeting, how much flexibility do we have in, obviously we want the wording correct, but, we can still tweak the presentation and make adjustments from that perspective.
Yeah, so the bigger thing relates to a planning board advertisement, so that has more impact on what type of changes it can have for a town meeting. So we have the actual article from the last time, which didn't seem to be too much of a subject of debate at town meeting, the actual zoning change. It was more some of the other pieces to the project. So we have that in place. I'll fine tune it with the building inspector. And, we're having engineering is in the process of drawing up a more professional map of that corner. As you guys know, it's very crowded over there. We have the street light, there's a street light box, traffic signal and a traffic signal box there, and the sign sort of sits in the middle. There's an older antiquated box there that can probably come out, which is sort of behind the banners. So we're working to at least draw an accurate representation of that sort of shows the state, how much of the right-of-way, sidewalks and all those things, so that we'll be able to put that together and sort of plot the dimensions of the potential sign on there as more of a visual in terms of what that corner looks like as well.
Yeah.
But in terms of having something in for the 25th, I think we have a really good starting point with the zoning article from last time. I don't anticipate significant changes to that, so I think we can start with that one.
Great, okay. So then, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'll just say that if anyone has any questions now, I'm happy to take them, or if folks want to reach out to me separately, we can, talk offline. Not talk, but I can take questions, and then fills them up to town council, and then we can get, revised draft policy and then discuss it at our next meeting.
Okay. So we'll start. Jim, any?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure that we get answers to all the reasons, or corrections to all the reasons why it didn't go through the first time. So I just want to make sure that whatever voids we had, they get filled and answered properly. So that's
Yep.
the policy being one of them.
Yeah, I think everything that Paul's talking about, plus the policy, are all the things that we've identified as areas the town meeting had concern with, and should hopefully answer all your questions.
No, I'm good then. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm glad to see we're going to push forward for September on this. And I think we have a lot of the work already done, and then it just needs to be fine-tuned. I mean, the design we had looked really good, I thought, and I think if we can polish it up and keep working on it, it should be no problem with a better presentation for September.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Sarah?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I went back and watched that town meeting when it was originally proposed and looked at the concerns, and obviously the big one was the safety of drivers, pedestrians, and bikers. So I do think it's critical that we get the police involved, which it sounds like while you're working on that, and whether it's, them there and talking about safety concerns and how they can be mitigated, whether it's through, having the text be static, messing with the brightness, especially at night, things like that. There are also studies out there, thank you, Google, for pointing me to these studies, but they have done studies on billboards and distractions on drivers and, what things to consider. So looking into things like that to answer those types of questions for when they come up. Also, size was an issue. I'm not sure of the specifics, but somebody mentioned that we would need a variance pretty much right away because of the size that was proposed or something like that. So looking into that. And then the last piece was funding. When it was originally proposed, we had ARPA funds. I don't know if those exist anymore, if they've been kind of depleted at this point.
Funding down myself. So,
Yeah.
yep.
Because, it was presented as being funded with ARPA funds. Somebody actually took issue with that, so I don't think those funds exist anymore. How are we funding it? I guess we're just going to be asking for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate your work with this, and we can talk offline if I think of anything else.
Awesome, thank you.
All set?
That's it, thank you.
You got everything?
Yeah, I mean, anything from you?
The biggest thing is like, what are we putting on there?
Right.
That's the biggest
Yeah.
criteria of all of that. I thought at town meeting that was, who's going to be in charge of it, who's going to, not in charge of it itself, we already know what that is.
The content.
But what's going to be the content of the sign?
Yeah.
What we allow, what we're not going to allow.
Right.
And as far as like the nighttime, what Sarah just said about nighttime, we can have it shut off at night. You can put it on a timer and shut it off at 9:30 at night and come back on at 7 o'clock in the morning, so there's no distraction at nighttime. Those are the advantages of technology today. All right, so we're all set there? Any other questions on this? Because it's just there for discussion. All right? Okay. Now, discussion, town clerk, elected or appointed. Mr. Sagarino, would you like to start us off with that?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board's aware, we want to keep this one as a standing select board agenda item as well for September. We heard some feedback from town meeting members, which I sort of summarized and provided to the board in terms of what town meetings feedback, in terms of what they would want to see before September, before they vote on this, in terms of job descriptions, job qualifications, pay ranges, who's the position report to, et cetera. I think one of the suggestions town meeting made was to create a committee for this purpose, and I was hopeful that at least tonight that the board could determine who should be, what should that committee be comprised of, and then hopefully between now and our next meeting on the 24th, hopefully we can make some appointments to that committee, because summer's here and people are going to be busy, and September will be here before we know it. So we want to make sure that we have a good presentation. And again, I don't know which direction the board even wants to move on elected versus appointed town clerk, but we certainly only have a couple months to put it together before September town meeting.
Okay. Let's start with Mike.
Yeah, as far as Paul's question, I'm really torn on it. I don't know how I feel on it yet. And I think putting together either a subcommittee or a smaller group to kind of do some of the legwork would be good. As far as the makeup, I'm not really sure. I think I'm open to discussion.
Okay.
That's a good question.
So in other words, you're just not sure?
Yeah, I'm not really sure on it. It's a tough one.
All right, okay. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know which way I'm kind of leaning, but it's not my decision. I think the idea of having a committee to vet the criteria is a great starting point, and I'd like to make that the first step, get that committee going. And again, like Mike, I have no idea who should be on it yet. I got to do a little bit of thinking, but that's where I think we should go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree. I think we do need a committee to talk about this a little bit more. I think it should be made up of a few town meeting members and one select board member, and I would volunteer myself to be a part of that if that option is there. I think the biggest, one of the issues discussed at town meeting around this is the issue of transparency and independence and trust, and who is going to appoint this position, who's going to oversee it, and just making sure that there's communication with the community about this decision, and it's not just being made behind closed doors, both now and whether we're changing this position to appointed rather than elected, and then moving forward during the appointment process and during the review process and that kind of thing. I think it's just paramount that as a board we are working with the community on this, to educate them, to consult with them, to get their feedback, and taking that into account as we move forward with this warrant article. So I am in favor of creating a committee of how many, I'm not sure. I know that's always a sticky topic, how many members in the committee, but I do think there needs to be town meeting members and at least one select board member.
Okay. Mr. Priest?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Step back. The purpose of this committee is to help us decide whether it should be elected or appointed, or to weigh the pros and cons of each. Like, what are we tasking this committee to do specifically?
You asking me?
I'm asking anybody who wants to answer a question.
Paul?
Sam, what do you think?
So I think ultimately, what?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I thought you said no. I was okay. Ultimately, I think the committee's task should be to do a deep dive into pros and cons versus elected versus appointed. Again, different scenarios in which who they report to, how they get selected, selection process, selection criteria. I mean, there are so many variables that you have to work out. I think if the committee can kind of put together a kind of a targeted outline, we'll say, of the direction we want to go, then that's something that, again, town meeting will ultimately have to vote on, and we'll have to vote on, but at least to try and narrow the parameters on the so many different ways to look at this.
Well, okay, so it's not about the parameters. I think what we're saying is we want the committee to look at the pros and cons, provide a report back about the pros and cons of what an elected role maintained or appointed can provide, right? Ensuring that there's transparency in the process and the role going forward, what other towns may or may not be doing, right? And then provide us a recommendation for us to then make a decision about how we want to approach it to town meeting. Am I correct in that assumption?
Sounds good.
Yeah? Okay, so now I'm going to flip it and say, walking back from town meeting, when does that recommendation need to be made? Like when, because we're running right at town meeting right now, but I want to make sure that we have the runway to have this conversation.
Well, I mean, September town meeting's about the third week in September, so working backwards from there, I think we'd want to be ready to go with a presentation to shop around to different boards and committees or town meeting information sessions leading up to town meeting. Ready to go by September, I would say.
Right, so that means it has to be ready for August to do the shopping, right?
Well, I guess technically September 1st.
September 1st.
Labor Day,
Okay.
most of the town meeting stuff happens in that 2 weeks leading up to town meeting.
Okay, so we have until September 1st to kind of procure our sense of it. So from a submission to the warrant perspective, when does that need to be in by?
Well, we'll submit it for the warrants either way, the same article, to give the flexibility. If that's the decision the town wants to go, we can have it on the warrant, and if people decide they want to keep things as it is, then we just, postpone it off the warrant and not take it up at town meeting.
Okay.
So we can ensure that we have the option to take it to town meeting. We'll submit the articles in time for the warrant for September, and then we can pull it, withdraw it, or whatever the board deems is appropriate, depending upon what direction the town thinks that we want to go on this.
Okay. My next question is, would Amy be willing to participate in this committee?
Pardon me?
Would Amy be willing as the current town clerk?
I think she would probably not want to be on the committee, but I think that she would be wide open to providing her feedback to the committee.
Okay, all right.
She
so-
may want to be on it, I can certainly ask her, but.
Okay. I would offer her the opportunity to be on the committee. I mean, she's a wealth of knowledge. She knows a lot of town clerks. She knows the process. I think that she can also help connect us to information that we might not be able to find, or this committee might not be able to find otherwise. Just based on like the market and how things, because I think the market plays a big factor into this, right? And I think that it should be a discussion point of the committee. So if she's willing, I'd like to see town clerk on there. I agree. I think a select board member is appropriate. And then I think, a handful of town meeting members, if we keep it to 5 people, I think would be, appropriate in my book. I don't know who else we would want to bring in.
Moderator, maybe?
Well, I mean, from what perspective?
Okay, so right now, we're talking about bringing in some different people. We haven't even discussed the fact whether or not we want elected or
Well, that's why I led my question with what the mission.
So I think the first thing this board has to do is figure out, do we want it as an elected position or an appointed position?
So, Joe, that was the point of my question about
Right.
the mission.
Right, but we're going far beyond that right now.
No, so,
Yeah,
no, the point of the committee is to help us determine that.
this is the 5 of us determine that, if I'm correct. Am I correct, Paul, on that?
Town meeting decides.
They'll make the final decision like everything else with our
I think the purpose of
tax
the
rate and
committee
everything
was
else.
to assist the
But-
board.
right.
I think when we're at town meeting, we heard that town meeting wanted some participation in terms of putting their 2 cents in or having a committee of others other than the board to bring it forward. So
Okay.
that was the sense that I got. So I think the committee would be a good starting point. The committee can get to work on this and then report to the board at our meetings this summer in terms of the progress, and, hopefully there'll be some sort of consensus by the time we go to.
So what are we approving tonight? Where it says clerk, elected versus appointed, discussion approval. What are we approving tonight?
I sent an email, and I thought a good first step for tonight would be for the board to determine what would comprise a committee that could assist the board in bringing this forward to town meeting. Again, ultimately, it's a town meeting, and I think the town will be looking to the board for leadership on this, but ultimately, it's a town meeting decision, and I thought that would be a good step for tonight, if we could sort of formulate who is that committee, how many members, so that we could get some folks appointed at our next meeting, and then they would have July and August essentially to put together this text.
Okay, hold up, Mike. I cut you off, so finish.
No, so what I'm saying is that if we're operating under the assumption that this subcommittee, its role, its function is to help inform us about the pros and cons of elected versus appointed, right? Then we're not making our decision yet. We're waiting for this information to come in. And if we're operating under that premise, then I would say that a select board member, town clerk, and 3 town meeting members for a body of 5 would be enough to give us an independent view into all the pros and cons, that they would report back to us, and then we would make a final decision. That would go to town meeting, and then town meeting would vote and discuss and do what they do. That's why I led with what I led.
Okay, so that's fantastic. One second, Michael, next, and I'll go with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing I wanted to add, I was just sitting here trying to think of people that would be helpful for the committee, and what would you guys and gal think of adding someone who's experienced with our election, like one of those election workers, or one of those people that help with the election, because they know the whole, one of our experienced ones, we can ask Amy, who would be a good person, so they know the whole process of the election, they've been part of it start to finish, and with the tabulation, just because that's a big part of the job, and maybe they could have some helpful input.
I agree with that. Go ahead,
That's
Sarah.
all that's it.
Just a point on that, and also this might be Amy's issue with being part of the committee, is that people who are involved in our elections like to stay very neutral and not always give their opinions one way or the other. Depending on what we want the role of this committee to be, they might just be there for informational purposes, which is fine. But then I have another question. Oh, okay. So the warrant article is essentially to put it on the ballot for the town to decide. Is that correct?
Yes.
Voting in favor of putting it on the ballot, is that a vote in favor of making it appointed?
Not necessarily.
Right, this is where it gets tricky, like, and that's what we're recommending, that we put it on the ballot for the town to decide. But also by doing that, we want to lead by example and tell them that we believe that this is the right way to go.
That's how I see it. I think that the town will be looking for some leadership from our elected officials in our town meeting. I think by, some town meeting members may just vote to put it to the ballot, see what the residents think, but, also a strong endorsement by town meeting. I think in the case of the treasurer position, I think it did impact the ballot. I think that the residents were looking for some guidance from those officials who are involved in our town government. So, but yes, it's technically a decision to put it on the ballot for the
Okay,
voters.
I just wanted a little clarity around that, but that helps.
Okay. All right, so what we're saying right now is that we all agree that it should be on a town ballot, right? That's what we're not approving that right now, but that's what we're all saying, it should be on the town ballot. Now it's a matter of, do we want to sit down right now and discuss who we think should be, or not by name, I guess, but by committee? Do you want to get into that and figure out who's going to, I like Mike's idea of one of the workers. Someone's already asked me about it. It was very, very, very knowledgeable. Sarah, I like your idea, but I think there should be 2 select people on the board, from the board. I think that there should be 3 town meeting representatives. So that would bring us up to 5, 6 at that point.
You add Amy at 7.
If Amy comes in, that's 7 people. How we pick the town meeting representatives is another whole story. Yes.
Would that, this is my point about the moderator, would that be something that we ask him to?
He could be the chair at that point,
Yeah.
because it's someone he has to work with very, very closely, right? Just the chair of those meetings, just to run the meetings.
Who moderator?
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking asking, having him reach out to town meeting, or do we reach out to town meeting?
It's a good question.
He appoints committees in town meeting.
I mean, it would be at the pleasure of the board, but the way I see it is if you guys were to determine who's on, not the people, but the positions
Right.
that are on this committee, we could get the word out to BCAD, and we could get the word out to the Buzz, and just solicit people to apply. Or send a letter of interest to the select board office, and we can put them all together for the board to consider.
Sure, may I add one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
You shoot this down if this is crazy, but would adding Gary Janino to the committee, because he's our appointed treasurer and has been through this and also has experience with town government, I think he'd be a good, I don't know. I'm trying to think of people here that would be, because it's not like a typical one from planning, like we did with the police station, one from land use, one from ZBRC. So just trying to get a wide, view here of like, trying to think of all the things the town clerk does and everyone that would be involved in that, closely. And I just think his perspective on being appointed treasurer, I don't know, just think it out loud, I guess.
Okay, so let's go, just real quick. Of 2 select board members, 3 town meeting members, Amy, 1 poll worker, and then Bill Bias with the possibility of Gary afterwards. So that's 3, that's 5, 6, 7, 8 people on 1 board.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, you may.
So, given the time frame that we have, I'd like to see a more controlled body. I think that, like, if we want to hear from Gary, that committee should invite Gary to come talk. And if we, even though we're saying we'd like to see Amy, she might say no. So we should be prepared to have, like, an alternate in case she does say, no, I'll just be more informational than I will be a participant.
I think a lot of people would get on this in a minute if they had the opportunity to.
Well, right, so if we did, like you said, to your point, Mr. Chairman, 2 select board members, town clerk, 3 town meeting members, and an election worker.
Right.
Gives us the 7th, right? If Amy says no, then we just alt out that town clerk seat for either a town meeting seat or something else. Like let's find a replacement for her.
We can leave that.
And then let them bring people in to discuss.
Right, okay.
Why don't we not make Amy part of the committee? I'm sure that she'd be more than happy to spend as much time with the committee to make sure that they have a full understanding. She was the one that brought this to us, so I do think that she's actively, interested in sharing her opinions on it, but may not be necessary for her to be actually on the committee.
Okay.
But I'm sure she would be glad to participate with the committee.
Also keeps the committee independent if you don't have Amy on there to look at both sides. So, yeah, but she'll definitely, I know she'll be a wealth of knowledge.
What about Bill Byer? Any comments on Bill?
Of being part of the committee or?
Part of the committee. Just part of the committee, where he's going to work with them, okay.
No, I think you might have valuable input. And also, these are just asking him, right? Bill may have a busy summer. You may not,
Okay.
you not want to.
Is he allowed to be a part of the committee that's discussing a town meeting warrant article?
Good question. Yeah.
I don't definitively know that answer. My suspicion is he probably would be able to, but again, that may just impair his independence in terms of running the meeting if he's part of a committee that's making a recommendation.
Yeah.
Keep him out of it then.
Yeah.
Okay, he's another one out. Good call. No worries at all. This is good. This discussion is always good.
So in lieu
Okay,
of-
so we're down to just me and Amy.
So in lieu of adding a 4th town meeting member to replace town clerk, is there an additional role that we could tap that we think would be a good discussion?
What about someone from, like, I'm thinking of Doug Davison, to be honest with you. I can't think of what position.
Ways and Means?
Ways and Means. Ways and Means.
Might be good for one.
You know what I mean? Thinking of Doug, he's very knowledgeable, he's level-headed, he's...
He could be your town meeting, one of your town meeting employees.
So in that case, I would just say make up the 4 town meeting members.
We could do that. We could just say one Ways and Means member.
Well, I mean,
That could be him, and
But
then
what
we could
was
still
Ways-
get,
but Ways
we
and
could
Means
still,
is financial.
we still get 3 from the town meeting at that point.
No, I know, I'm just saying from a seat perspective, taking Doug specifically out of the question.
Yeah.
From a seat perspective, what does Ways and Means bring specifically that just a regular town meeting member wouldn't?
Someone knowledgeable, someone that willing to sit down and figure it out. I mean,
I think we could just make it 4 town meeting members, because, I mean, Doug is still in that pool if he's interested.
Okay, all right, we can do that. I'm just open for all kinds of suggestions right now, so I'd like to, get this.
Yeah, I don't think it's a financial question, so I don't think, we'd have to limit it to Ways and Means.
What about, financial and capital budget, the 2 of them, I know, they're both very good committees, and there's a lot of good people on those committees. So I would say if we took one from each of those committees, there are a lot of knowledgeable people that, could help us along the way. Or we could just say, no, we'd go with 4 town meeting members.
I think go with 4 town meeting, I agree with.
No, I'm just throwing it all out there, it doesn't matter.
Pull it from the same pool.
Okay.
So I think that keeping it at the 4 is,
Okay.
I was just trying to think, like, is there anybody else within town hall or, that is in town government that we'd be like, oh yeah, that role should also weigh in on this.
Okay.
I mean, maybe not. Maybe it's, this is the makeup, you know?
Is everyone okay with the one poll worker, or someone that works with the poll?
Definitely,
I think having it,
There's a guy, I don't know, Paul Elliott, I can't think of his last name, Savorsky, do you know him? Savorsky's a poll worker?
I do think that I know who that is.
Okay. He's already asked me once already, very above and beyond intelligent, one of those guys that just, and he's been working the polls for years, so I'd like to ask him if he'd like to be on there. Okay, so I'll ask him. So we got,
Should ask him to submit a letter of interest, just in
Right.
case his other poll workers.
Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, we're going to keep it all fair, right? Is there another select person that wants to be on that committee? No, and good, I'll be on it. Me and you, Sarah, all right? Okay, good. So that's the two of us. Okay, so we're going to go with 2 select, 4 town meeting member, and the possibility of a poll worker, and that will wrap it up, right?
Sounds good.
Good.
Everyone agree with that?
Yes.
Sounds
Everyone on the board?
And just for the board's knowledge, Arlington just recently made this change, like very recently.
Okay, good.
So they should have some good information available, just in terms of what they talked about at their town meeting, et cetera.
Okay, fantastic. All right,
You want
great.
a formal vote on that makeup? So then, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the creation of a subcommittee to help us determine whether or not, or the pros and cons of appointed versus elected with regards to town clerk, with the makeup of 2 select board members, 4 town meeting members, and an election worker.
Okay. I have a second on that.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Abstained? None? 500. Okay?
Sydney, could you make that news for tomorrow, please? We're looking for this committee.
Okay.
We can spread the word.
Discussion, BCAT. Appointment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board's longstanding member at Board of Directors, the board-appointed member Brad Bond has recently resigned from that committee, so the Select Board has an appointment to make, and I think what we wanted to talk about tonight was how do you wish to go about making that appointment? What process do you want to follow? Do you want to have any suggestions as to how to get that done? So Brad was with BCAT for, I think, 16 years possibly on the board, so the board hasn't had to find a replacement for many years now. So just wanted to give the board the opportunity to weigh in on how you want to fill that position. I get the sense from talking to BCAT that there's no particular rush on this, so you don't have to feel like you're under the gun to make a decision as to how to move forward. But I think it would be great to start the process and then hopefully get to a decision maybe by a July meeting at the latest.
Okay. How have we done this in the past? Because it was such a long time ago that we did anything like this. So how, do we just pick
I would not have
internal?
any knowledge of how it was done 16 years ago, to be honest. Like I say, a typical board appointment, select board office can do an advertisement, they get it out to the local press, and we solicit letters of interest from interested members of the community, and then the board would sort of go through and make a selection out of those interested parties. So that would be the typical fashion that the board would fill a position like this.
Sounds good to me. Anybody else?
No, I concur with that.
Nick?
I think following a standard process is good for this, and I think that obviously BCAT's going to promote the hell out of it. I think anybody who's within the current BCAT community is interested, should say so on the application form, so we're aware of, their relationship to BCAT and how long they've been doing, participating within the community. That way, again, we're aware of it, and looking at it, then we can go from there.
Okay. Michael?
Yeah, if it's been worked for other committees, I don't see why changing it, and just, yeah. So that's why I am involved with BCAT, full disclosure, so I'll be abstaining from this vote.
Okay. Sarah?
Yeah, that sounds good. Just from a newbie perspective, I guess this is the question. So what would happen, these letters of interest come to us with resumes or,
Oh,
and then we
That's what we had to talk about, so-
interview them in a public capacity, like at a meeting, or?
you could, depending
Okay.
upon how many, candidates and whether they're, multiple qualified candidates, you may want to take the step of doing an interview as well.
Okay, yeah. In the interest of transparency and making sure everybody, sees that we're making the right decision based on the pool of candidates that we get, I think that is the right thing to do.
Okay. So I think at this point, the discussion is go forward with putting it out there, right? Put it in the newspaper, put it on BCAT, figure it out, get the applications to come into here, and we'll move forward from that point.
Does the board have a timeline in terms of, let's just try to work back from the appointment date? Want to solicit over the next 2 weeks, or how much time do you want the ad to be out there?
Well, they said they weren't in a hurry, so if we go within a month, I think everything would be fine, right?
And you just need to build in time for potential interviews.
Yeah.
I guess we
But
could do that is start, start a meeting at 5:30 or something, and everybody come in a little bit early before we start our typical board meeting.
I would say give them 3 weeks to get the application in, right? This is just all talk. You guys can, and girls, sorry. You can change it any time, but 3 weeks to get the applications in, then we sit down and we read them after that, and then we can potentially, if there's 13 applications, we can go and figure out, get it down to 5, and bring 5 in here for a meeting.
The July meeting?
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing to shoot for.
Yeah.
Do it, interviews prior to the July meeting. We start a little bit early for that process and do them here.
Everyone okay with that?
Okay, so we go, give a deadline of July 5th, that gives them a week, and they bring it to the 15th to review anything that we receive. Because 3 weeks would be the July 2nd.
July 2nd.
From tomorrow,
would be
we
the
get that out
deadline.
tomorrow.
Be the deadline for letters of interest and applications. And I'm assuming the board wants to see a resume or just a letter of interest, or what is the?
If they can, I know the letter of interest, the application form that we usually have out there asks for, what do you call it? Like experience.
Qualifications.
Right, qualifications. I think we should be asking for some level of qualification.
A little bit more than a letter of
Yeah,
intent.
it's like I'm glad you're interested, but, we're replacing somebody with 16 years' experience. In a town where, our local, access station, it matters a great deal. I think we should make sure that we aim to have a qualified person in that role. If July, people are going on vacation, do we bump this to our August meeting and give folks a window to get stuff in?
You
I feel like July might be rushing it.
I think you're spot on that, yes. Everyone think that July's vacation month, so we'll go to August?
Well, what's the deadline for applications? So just so that we can, July 15th?
July 15th?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, because when is our August meeting?
The 12th. So that, if you.
So a month
receive
prior.
that, yeah, you would have 3 full weeks to review before that meeting.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm on board with that, as
Okay.
long as everybody else is.
Everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. Paul, you all set with everything?
Yes, thank you.
All right, okay. I believe we have 2 gentlemen in the room that have been waiting very patiently since 7 o'clock or whatever time they came in. Discussion, September town meeting, zoning change. Come on up, gentlemen, introduce yourself and sign the paper. And
Okay.
Segrino, you want to start with this, or want to go right to them?
We'll go right to them.
All right.
All right, so I'm Will Seagard. I'm a resident, Precinct 7, and
I'm Alex Rutfield. I'm a town meeting member for Precinct 5.
and so basically, the proposal is in order to allow for recreational marijuana zoning in town. Obviously, back in, I think it was 2016, 2017, it was initially banned for recreational purposes. And so it was allowed medically. So currently, right now, medical marijuana zoning is in place. What we're proposing is to actually shrink that down and narrow sort of the scope and the zone in which it'll be allowed to right along Mall Road and Middlesex Turnpike, right, and basically to those strip malls and that area right there. So there's obviously a long, complex process for that to happen. Step one is just to get the zoning put in place at town meeting. And then after that would happen, we would come back in front of the planning board and go for a special permit once the site was picked and all the plans were drawn and all of that. And then the other part of that would be this right here, the host community agreement, which that's our agreement with the town. And that would have to get recertified every single year. And that spells out tax rate, hours of operation, other sort of parameters under which we as a business would need to operate. And so I'm also in the business, sorry, I should have led with that, and would be hoping to open up a recreational storefront, obviously within the parameters that are set forth. So, yeah, we're just here to provide information, answer questions, get any feedback that any of you have, and sort of take it from there.
So I'm going to start real quick. You do have a business now that you've already...
Yeah, so I have a licensed cultivation facility. We're in Fitchburg, and we supply dispensaries already all over the state. Took like 5 years to get open. I'm very familiar with all the zoning, the planning, all of that entails. And we're currently, compliant, licensed, and...
So you supply, right now, you said you had an agricultural license to grow it.
Yep.
And you supply it, and do you have a store right now?
We do not have a store.
Okay, this is the third factor you're looking for as a possibility of getting a store placed.
Yep.
Okay. What... Oh, I'm going first. Why did I go first? I never go first. Sorry about that, guys. I'll ask a question. What's the benefit to the town?
So the town would be allowed to impose an additional tax rate of up to 3% of all the sales that would happen at that specific store. So right now, Billerica has recreational, Arlington has recreational, Cambridge, Woburn, and I know for a fact last year Billerica made $300,000. They're projecting a little bit more this year, same with Arlington. And so it's not millions of dollars every year, but if you look at it over the course of 20, 30, 50 years, it's tens of millions of dollars. So, and it's money that's all just being left on the table right now by Burlington. And sort of my position on it is that we're not changing accessibility. We're not preventing marijuana from being in Burlington by not allowing a storefront. We're just not allowing legal transactions to happen, and we're actually promoting the black market and unregulated sales, in my opinion. So,
all right, Paul, I have a quick question. Where would, if this was the long way away, but if this was to happen, say the $300,000 that the town gets from it, where does that go? What fund does that go into?
I believe
General?
it's currently general fund revenue.
Okay.
By statute, but I'd have to check up on that. When the town banned it a few years ago, I stopped staying up on the cannabis laws, to be honest with you. I know there's been a lot of changes since that time, but I haven't really followed it very closely.
Okay.
He is correct in stating that there's a 3%, up to a 3% surcharge that the town can collect on sales.
Okay.
So that part is correct as well. But
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sorry for going first, but Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the 300,000, is that based on, how many stores does Billerica have? Because
One. They just have one. Yep.
Okay, so for me, the question is, do we want this in our town?
Yeah.
And for a long time, people did not. But when you look at it realistically, you can get it in Woburn, you can get it in Billerica. I mean, it's just over the line, literally. And for me to be in favor would have to be the economic impact would have to be worth it. And I think initially it was voted down just because it was new and people didn't know really how it would work. So we voted against it when it was just approved, and we just kind of sat back. What year was that? When it was like 18?
2017, 16, 17. I think it was 16. It got approved on the ballot, and then they were making the rules. So, and then things really started rolling out like 2018, 2019.
So we've had a good 5 years to see the impacts. Do you guys have any information or studies on crime rate adjustment in towns that approved it versus towns that didn't, or?
So that I've seen, there's not too many comprehensive studies in Massachusetts yet, but if you look at the data from Colorado, which was the first state to legalize recreationally, they actually, from what I know, showed that crime rates go down where these stores locate because there's increased surveillance, police presence, all those things. And so it actually has had the opposite effect, contrary to what a lot of people think.
So for the 300,000, do you have any studies that show what these towns that approved it had to bring in for people? I didn't even know this until today, that got addicted to marijuana. I didn't even know it was addictive. Got addicted and that the towns had to pay for treatment, or are there any, has anyone taken a look at that?
I haven't seen anything. I know that part of the rollout of this was that the state is mandated to conduct studies regarding that. I haven't seen any data on that, though. And actually, all of the data that I've seen shows that it decreases rates of addiction of all kinds of other substances. One of the town meeting members who's in favor of this is actually a substance abuse researcher. And so I had some pretty lengthy discussions with her, and she seemed like she was very pro allowing this. So I think if there were any issues with it, she would have let me know.
Is 300K typical for a town our size? Do you have any comparison on like towns our size versus number of stores versus?
I just use those numbers because Arlington obviously is on one side of town and Billerica is on the other. I think that Burlington actually has the potential to have even higher numbers just because of the traffic we get with the mall, and there's a lot of other reasons people come to town. And so we'd be sort of capitalizing on the people who are already here for other reasons, whether they're coming to go to work or coming to go to the mall or what have you. So I think that I wanted to give a conservative estimate just based off of real numbers and exactly what those other places are doing. That was sort of a long-winded way of saying Arlington has, I believe, 2 stores and Billerica has 1.
And another question is there anything in your warrant article you're proposing that is going to limit the number of stores you're looking to do? Or
So it's limited based on the number of liquor store licenses that are issued in the town, and so it would be 20% of those. So I'm not sure the exact number on that. I don't know if you have more information than me.
Okay. And is this medicinal or open to the public or both?
It's recreational, so 21 plus only.
Anyone?
Yep.
So anyone, even if you don't have a card, could?
Yep.
And so for me, again, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the difference for the town of medical versus recreational, medical does not have the taxes associated with it.
Okay.
So there's really no financial upside on the medical, and like there is with recreational.
Okay, and yeah, I think to make your case on this, I think it's the economic impact that'll probably be what'll convince people one way or the other.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some people that are going to be against it, some people that don't mind it, but I think the people in the middle, like myself, I think knowing like what the financial benefit to the town would be.
Yeah.
Because we're always looking for, obviously, new revenue streams. But it's something to think about. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Mr. Priest?
Thanks, Sharon. Will, Alex, thank you for coming in tonight, and thank you for your patience. You guys managed to get on the one long meeting we've had in quite a while. In terms of the 20% being based off of the liquor licenses, do we know, I'm asking you or Paul, if you guys know, if it's based on in-use liquor licenses or the total number of liquor licenses we have access to?
It's, I believe.
Either way, it would be a lot.
No, I know.
It's not all liquor licenses. It's just liquor stores, so just package stores. So it's not all liquor licenses. It's, I think the actual terminology is off-premises liquor licenses. And that's stated in the state law.
Okay. I'd love to know what that is and what that equates to in terms of available shops.
I think, I mean, based on just a Google search, I want to say there was 6, so it would be allowing potentially for up to 2.
At this point in time?
Yes.
Right. Okay, and then I know, Will, the last time that you and I spoke, my advice to you was to go talk to town meeting. Obviously, you have Alex here, so you've been at town meeting. What's the vibe across town meeting? How are folks feeling?
I think I've gotten a pretty good reception and feedback. I think a lot of people obviously have the reservations, but understand that there are hundreds of these all over the state, and there are a lot of towns and cities that are seeing real benefits from it. And, you know, when every police officer, police chief that I've spoken to has said they're for it, and they haven't really had any of these negative experiences that initially were the reservations of a lot of town meeting members. I think that's gone a long way. And so I think people are pretty for it. Obviously not everybody, but I think it's a fair bit.
Yeah. And this is a zoning change. This will be a 2/3 vote at town meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out that Will also submitted a general bylaw change because the town also has a general bylaw prohibiting the marijuana as well. And Lynn informed me that both articles to correct both of those were submitted. I just had Will's worked really hard on trying to figure out the process here. He's been bouncing around to offices and offices for quite a while now, but I would just ask, in order to guarantee it makes it on the warrant, given that you're a resident,
you
would want to have town meeting member sponsorship. Is that what Alex?
Yeah.
So if you could just put something in on an email or something like that requesting that both of those articles be added to the warrant as Alex town meeting member, that would be helpful for our office, because aside from that, for example, if the board didn't want to add it onto the warrant, it's not like if the school committee requested it, we have to put it on the warrant.
Right.
So I would just suggest to you procedurally, if you want to guarantee that it moves forward.
I'm learning every day, so.
You have your town meeting members sort of sign off as sponsors to it with our office.
Okay.
Just in reading the bylaw with Amy this afternoon.
And just to sort of loop everybody in, I did go to GBRC and ZBRC on both of these things. The general bylaw is just eliminating pretty much everything from our general bylaw because the state has over 300 pages of regulations, and it was town council's sort of opinion that we just default to that then. So that's my understanding of it.
Refer to the state law.
Yeah, rather than repeat that 300 pages in our own.
And I just have one more question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Now, Will, by virtue of the fact that you're the one doing the work here, if town meeting were to approve this, does not necessarily guarantee that your company
I know.
is a shop, correct?
Yeah.
So there's a process there
Yep, yeah. So then the next step obviously would be we have to select a site, get a lease or purchase a spot, and then negotiate the agreement with the town. And I think what I want town meeting members and yourselves all to know is that we're not like other businesses. Every single year I need to recertify my license. So if something comes up that wasn't foreseen right now in year one, we can always add that in, and we're happy to make any changes that we need to. I want, you know, everybody to be as happy with this as possible. So.
You all set, Mr. Paul?
Yes, thank you.
Jimmy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately for you, and we've talked at length, I'm one of those people who aren't in favor of this. It's just long personal and professional history, and I just don't think the money is worth it, especially where we're doing so well. We have a strong tax base, so I am not in favor of something like this. However, this is a bylaw change, and the bylaws don't fall under the purview of this board. They fall under the purview of town meeting. Town meeting implemented bylaws in 17, and if they choose to rescind them or amend them, that's their choice, but bylaws fall under the purview of the town meeting. But personally against it, but I am not part of that process to satisfy what you're looking for.
Okay.
Thank you. Sarah?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am personally in favor of it and would support this. I understand it's town meeting's job to look at these bylaws, but I see in the language, it's a lot of language, I didn't read every single.
Yeah.
But there was the mention of Board of Health.
Yep.
Was Burlington Board of Health pulled in or discussed?
Yeah, so I met with Susan, and basically because we're not manufacturing anything or proposing to be manufacturing or making anything, it'd just be the sale of already packaged goods. Her opinion was really that they didn't have much to say about it. Obviously, like I said, something comes up in the future, and it's in there just if they did want to have input in the future, they can.
That was my only question.
Yeah.
Question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess a question for, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Paul. Are they both two-thirds majority they need to make both changes?
I'd have to check on the general bylaw, but clearly the zoning is.
Wakefield had both things up at their town meeting, and it was two-thirds for the zoning and a simple majority for the bylaw. So they did zoning first, bylaw second. So if the zoning, presumably, you're also in favor of the bylaw passing. So they did it backwards in some town meeting members' minds, but it was because it makes more sense to vote in that pattern.
Thanks, Sam.
Good? Okay. So real quick, if this was to all move forward and go through, do you know where it's allowed in town or where it's not allowed in town, or do we know that?
So right now, anywhere that's industrial zoned, you could legally cite a medical location.
I'm thinking of our school systems, I'm thinking of our,
Yeah.
you know, I don't want it near the schools or.
So there's.
Before you start, you know, a couple of years ago, if you all remember, they put a smoke shop in down next to Schoolhouse Ice Cream, and the residents went ballistic over it.
Yeah.
For a smoke shop, so I mean, I can't imagine this going in across from the high school or.
No.
You know, not that our school district like is close to, but anyway, you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So there are, you know, there's the overlay that's proposed, and then within that overlay, there are still all kinds of setbacks. And so there was no way that was, you know, feasible or rational to carve out every little piece that would fit. And obviously, a school could theoretically pop up anywhere in town at any point, and the zoning is going to be in place for the foreseeable future. So there are other setback requirements on top of just being within that zoning overlay, if that makes sense.
Mr. Chairman, there's a map in the backup. It's a little bit hard to see the line on there.
Couldn't see it.
It's, yeah, it's not colorblind friendly, so
Yeah, I
we'll
looked
fix
at it,
that.
I'm like,
But within the article itself, as Will mentioned, I believe that there are other limitations, like X amount of feet from a school.
Yeah. School, daycare, yeah.
great.
Anything.
Perfect, all right. Anybody else have any further questions on this right now? It says here, discussion, so we're not voting on anything, right? This is just a discussion for all of us to move forward with this, okay? So I think it was a good discussion. I think there's more to come, and thank you for your patience, both of you, to sit there and...
Thank you, everybody, for your time.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
next time we
All
will
right.
go on an agenda that is this lengthy. We'll try not to anyway.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. Have a nice night.
You too. Thank you. All right, affordable housing approval. I'm gonna go back online here, it's been a long time. 982-612, where are we here? 21. Sorry for the delay, everybody. Okay, Paul, affordable.
John,
Oh,
this one.
there you are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was a memo from our affordable housing consultant of his rest that was in your backup. This is sort of a housekeeping matter that's required for any time one of our affordable units is up for refi or any sort of mortgage approval. They need to get, in this particular case, they need to get the approval from us and then the approval from the state after us. And all the details were outlined in that memo. If there's any additional questions, I can try to.
Perfect. Questions? Go ahead.
Quick one. So John, they have all the approval paperwork. It's all contingent upon our approval and state approval.
Yes.
That's all.
Okay. Sarah?
No questions.
Nick?
Not for me.
No, sir.
None for me either. Okay. So we need,
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the affordable housing refinance request as presented for 2 Reserve Way.
Second.
motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500. Meeting dates, changes. Need an approval for that. One date change.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we move the meeting. It's currently scheduled for next Monday, June 17th to June 24th.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Against? Okay. 500 in favor. Minutes regarding May 6th, 20th, 2024, and strategy April 25th. Anybody?
I'll make a group motion unless somebody has a abstain. All right, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion we approve minutes from our regular meetings, May 6th and May 20th of 2024, and our strategic planning, April 25th, 2024.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstained, opposed? 500 in favor. Okay, long night. Any subcommittee reports tonight?
I have nothing.
I just want to remind everyone that we are a few short weeks away from the Burlington's 4th of July parade. We hope to see everyone out there on the 4th. We typically get rolling around 11 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to remind everyone, this Saturday on the Common, we're going to have the Cops and Cars event. It's a nice car show benefiting people helping people. It's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., so come on out and check out the cars and maybe buy a raffle for people helping people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sarah?
Sure, I just wanted to say, as we are still in, June is still Pride Month, I wanted to mention that on June 1st, it was Leo's Pride Day on the Common. It was a really great event, so praise to Carrie Lynn Abramoff, who pulled that off with a whole team of people. It was just a really positive, fun, great day, perfect weather. Saw some of my fellow board members there as well. So thank you for another year of Pride in Burlington.
Thank you. And Chairman's report, the only thing I'm going to report, Memorial Day was A great success again. The speaker was incredible. He was, Jimmy, he had so many acclimates, I couldn't even remember them all.
Oh, his chest was
Yeah,
lit
his
up with
check was
ribbon.
just
It's incredible.
everything with acclimates.
But his,
So I just want to thank Chris Hannaford for doing a wonderful job with that. Mr. Sagarino, anything with your end?
I have nothing further.
We have nothing further. Lynn, would you like to talk tonight? Of course not.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passed.